Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. So I'm going to do a quick introduction, just the normal stuff. I haven't been saying this lately, and maybe it doesn't even matter. I'm going to have to go back to, I think after December or sometime in the near future, in the start of the new year, I'm going to have to go have a conversation with the chat bots again because you guys, most of you are probably aware of this, but I talked to YouTube chat bots about, I forget even what the term was, but I found out somebody sent me something where YouTubers were saying they were put on a list where YouTube was punishing them for doing something like watching their own videos or some kind of, it flagged them and they were not getting money revenue. And these were not truthers. They were just, your normal YouTubers. And there's this list you get on because the algorithm sense you're doing something and you're not, right? My wife was telling me last night that there are all these kids who are writing their own term papers, and the professors are putting them through a system that's saying that it's generated by AI. And so AI is falsely saying to these kids that their papers are being generated by AI. And so the thing doesn't even work, right? The algorithms and the AI is really not, it's like not good. People thought that AI was going to be smarter, was going to learn to take over the world, but AI does things which is called, I forget the term for it, hallucinating or something like that, where they make things up that aren't true. They find things, they make up facts to fill in gaps, and they do a lot. There's a lot of mistakes. It's like kind of a mess. My son was actually saying this as well. So AI has turned out to be like an incompetent, bumbling human being who does a lot of shit and takes shortcuts and lies about shit, and like so. But anyways, let's go back to my conversation. So I had these three conversations that I documented them. I read them to people with the AI, chatbots on YouTube, and I said I'm being shadow banned, and they said there's no such thing, and I said, well, you don't agree with the term shadow ban, but you do it like it's something that YouTube does. It's a part of how they treat different types of channels, and they clearly do it. And we went back and forth, and then all of a sudden I started to get people who hadn't been notified about my videos, who had forgot about my channel altogether and hadn't seen my channel in years, started to get notifications. And all of a sudden my view count went up. I went up from like what it is now, because it's regressed again. Like my videos are down to 3,000-4,000, and went up to 5,000 and more in terms of whatever's going on. But now it's regressed again, where I'm getting less than 1,000 less. All of a sudden, there's been a drop off. So I'm talking about this here. So people have to let the chatbots know that you are interested and continue to see my content by, first liking the videos, because that's the easiest thing to do. Leaving a comment, even if it's just an emoji, and then all the other things that are available to you. There's, of course, the subscribing, resubscribing, hitting the notification button, doing anything to let the algorithms know. Especially now, I'm putting out more content, daily content, almost like every day and a half. I'm putting out a video now, and and that again works against. I mean, you think YouTube definitely wants you to put out more content, but the algorithms don't, value it. Because if people don't watch the whole video, or they don't click on the video right away, or whatever it is, if they're still on the other video, or they're not going to watch every video, or whatever it might be, YouTube says, well, the person's no longer interested in the channel, even though they're still watching content, just not as all of it that's available. And so there's all these things. I might go back to putting one video up a week on the other channel, just the Apocalypse Now channel, just to keep that going. The money has gotten better than it was, but 4 years ago in the 2020 election, this was my best 2 months, November and October, November, and December, because all the ad money that was being spent. And I made 4 times what I'm making now. So I don't know and people are saying they're seeing lots of ads on my channel, so they're just paying people less for the ads. And so, there's a whole thing I have to deal with in January. I mean, it should be okay for December, then I have to, but it's a whole battle. I was talking to my son about He was asking me about the channel and the merch and things, and I have merch that's available, and I want to. There's a few more things I'm going to get back into that hopefully next year, and of course people can leave a one-time donation or be a part of the membership program, which I put out regular Journey series videos, and eventually when I have more time, I'm going to start putting out my old videos and making them available to members. And so they're really letting people do more now. They're not yellowing the videos like they used to. YouTube relaxes on all these things like the community guideline stuff and demonetization of videos when they can make more money, when they have a lot more ad revenue, which is especially in an election year, and then going into Christmas where there's just a lot of advertisement. And then come the January and February, they clamp down. And so this is like the whole thing. So we'll see. Anyways, I just want to bring that up, and I got a bunch of stuff to get to today. It's going to be a kind of epic video about apocalyptic stuff. I'm halfway through making it, but let's get into it here. Okay. Greetings, brothers and sisters. I got a bunch of things to get to. Britney Spears is making a comeback. I haven't covered her in a while. Somebody sent me something from her, and just seems like it feels right to bring Britney back. Like, this is going to cover the full barrage of the apocalypse, martial law in South Korea, just all kinds of things that are about the collapse of the system. And these are just all kind of, unrelated but totally related events. So the first thing is that we passed $36 trillion, and they're covering it. I saw at least on Fox News and somewhere else. So that's happened, right? We're well above $36 trillion. We're already at $36 trillion, and that would be almost $200 billion. And so I don't know when we passed it, but, we did it. We didn't think we could do it, but we did it. I've gone through this before, all the stuff. And the unfunded liabilities down here, and everything just keeps on getting redder and redder. The $5 trillion in income and $2 quadrillion of debt, it just doesn't, the numbers just don't work. And so let's go to this other video. Okay, so Twitter actually does the best job of recommending videos for me. This one was recommended, I don't know who this was. It's by this guy George, who I don't follow. George with a check mark. George is, the Lord is good. President Trump just dropped bombshell by nominating Billy Long, a former auctioneer, to the commissioner of the IRS. Long famously made one of the funniest jokes in Congress about the national debt.
So one other thing, being an auctioneer in Congress, the way our debt is running out of control, they find it very handy to have Jeff Duncan and myself here in Washington. We are one of the few people that can actually keep up with the national debt. I'm $1 trillion, $2 trillion now, $3 trillion, $3 trillion now, $4 trillion, $5 trillion, $6 trillion, $7 trillion, $8 trillion, $9 10 11 trillion down here, 12 trillion, 13. You're out of here, 13 trillion, 14 trillion now, 15. I have sold it 14 trillion. Thankfully, Mr. Speaker, we also can say those numbers backwards, so we get the spending under.
Okay, so but you know what? It's double that, bro. So I don't know when he did it. He's not that great an auctioneer. I always like listening to those auctioneers. He's okay. But there's better ones. They do it at the like if you go to these places where they sell cattle, and then of course other places. But it's kind of funny. But it's whenever he did this, it's doubled since then. When I think it was $9 trillion when I started to look at it back in like 2014, whatever it was. So it's tripled since that time, more than tripled, and almost quadrupled. So, and when we're talking about trillions of dollars and $9 trillion, tripling $9 trillion, then it's that's very substantial. Anyways, there's this guy. Okay, so Biden White House is discussing preemptive pardons for those in Trump's crosshairs. So it's apparently he's thinking about pardoning. See what it says here. The Fauci, Adam Schiff, Liz Cheney, somewhere here, Dr. Fauci. I don't know, Dr. Fauci here. Dr. Fauci, he's not a healer, but he's a doctor. And a number of these other places, right? Skifty Skift and Liz Cheney and Nancy Pelosi possibly. And so he's saying that Trump's going to go after them, and so they should be pardoned. But, he can only go after them if they committed crimes, right? So, I think it might be a good thing just to move on from all this stuff. I know people want to see retribution or whatever it is, but that just never ends well. And there's more important things like the collapse of civilization. But it'd be pretty effed up if he does. It's like we'll see if he does. But this is from Politico. And so, we'll see. Okay, so this is starting to look kind of cheesy and fake.
23 past the hour, just minutes ago, the NYPD released these new images, and I want you to take a look at them, of the suspect wanted in the fatal shooting of the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson. Here you can see a lot clearer his face.
So up to this point, they just had a mask of the guy.
These are the two pictures. Take a look at that. This one, he's smiling.
So this guy who dressed up in this outfit went to multiple places with cameras wearing the same outfit, and here he is just it looks kind of bogus, right? And he's smiling in this thing. It doesn't look like that's the guy who's just about to kill somebody or after he kills somebody.
With the mask off. Second picture.
They have all these cameras everywhere, so he would have to leave the mask on until he went to wherever he went, someplace where he was able to change his clothes outside of where, the cameras would pick him up. And so.
Still the mask off, not smiling, but you can see a much clearer photo, especially in this one, I think.
That's the better of the two. It's starting to look, all these things are kind of suspect. But, it looks kind of fake.
Of these new pictures that, as we can see, the suspect, and I don't know where the photo.
It looks like he's in some kind of lounge area here. I don't know if this is in almost like a college campus, I would say, or I don't know if this is a seat here. And so, again, this would be the same day. Like he's wearing the same clothes he did when he allegedly did the shooting.
Photos are from, but of course we'll bring you all the updates as we get them. This is a fast-moving story.
It's moving. It's fast-moving, and they have something about Trump. Okay, so I grabbed this clip yesterday. Today's Friday, December 6th, in the morning. It was the first thing I did for this video. And then I found out more information about this. But ultimately, I watched a news segment, CNN or MSNBC, where they were talking about how great CCTV type of, British, there's a whole CCTV show on Peacock that was, kind of conspiratorial. And it showed how they could deep fake all this CCTV stuff, and they were doing it to arrest people and fake evidence and things like this. Kind of interesting show. It had 2 seasons. Good show. Well done. And so they were pushing CCTV because they have this guy. Now, this is supposed to be a trained assassin. He knew how to follow this guy and stake him out, get him, right in front of the hotel. He had a bike ready to jump on and ride his bike to safety. And he used a silencer, in the busy, noisy New York City. He had the ability to purchase a gun with a silencer. And he looks like some, kid like that. Looks like Jake Gyllenhaal or some shit here, right? But he was riding all over town on his bike. They got him everywhere, going everywhere before and after the shooting. They got him in this, whatever it is, coffee bar, wherever he is here, smile on his face, exposing his face with the mask off. Or maybe this is somebody who's just dressed like him. Maybe there's guys, they put multiple people all over town to do this. But it looks kind of cheesy, like they're using this as a way to push CCTV, to get more surveillance in these cities so that this kind of thing can't happen. I mean, it just looks like one of these bogus things because they're openly talking about it on CNN and MSNBC. And so this is whatever it is, but it looks like it's, one of these agenda-driven type of stories. So then there's this.
Parliament after the president declared emergency martial law. President Yoon Suk-yeol announced the step in a televised briefing, saying it was critical for defending the country's constitutional order. Yoon has accused his political opponents in parliament of sympathizing with North Korea, saying they've paralyzed the government with anti-state activities. Now those opposition parliament ministers are trying to force a vote to lift the martial law. Let's bring in foreign correspondent Marcus Moore along with ABC News.
Okay, so martial law, I mean, this is stuff that's going to be coming. You know, you're going to see a breakdown civilization, things that you've never seen before. Of course, the Aurora Borealis, people are seeing that, which means that there's going to be, the poles are going to flip. I mean, at least that was predicted a long time ago, that there'd be a pole reversal. And when you start seeing the northern lights, that's when you know what's going to come. When you're seeing northern lights in like Florida, you know that it's something's up. But, you know, martial law is coming to America at some point, too. Trump can't wait to bring it in. And we'll see, you know. Trump's unpredictable. But this is the direction that these things are going. Also, let me insert this clip. I already got this clip before because it was up on my toolbar and I grabbed it when I had a chance. But this alleged gunman who shut down that healthcare CEO guy in New York City, he's got pictures of the guy smiling with his mask off. Let me go to that because it seems pretty suspect. Okay, so one of my viewers on Instagram sent me this right with somebody else sent me the stuff with Britney that's coming up in a little bit. So this guy.
This photo?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. Is that
This is the guy back here behind Kamala. This is the guy. This is there's something to do with Trump's bogus assassination attempt.
remembrance of September 11th?
It was.
Was it in New York?
It was at Ground Zero.
Okay. Who's usually at an event like this closest to the President of the United States, security-wise?
The sack of the detail.
Special agent in charge of the detail. Were you the special agent in charge of the detail that day?
Actually, let me address this. Could you please, staff, leave that? Oh no, leave that one up with the
He's getting pretty testy.
circle around me. Thank
So
you.
this guy had something to do with the Secret Service. This has to do with Trump assassination.
So actually, Congressman, what you're not seeing is the sack of the detail out of the picture's view. And that is the day where we remember the more than 3,000 people that have died on 9/11.
This sanctimonious shit he's pulling out, right?
I actually responded to Ground Zero.
But he did. He's one of those guys. He's a responder. So here's the president. So the person he's saying is somehow behind President Biden, right? Because this is the Secret Service. So they're saying this is a Secret Service failure. But the guys get testy here. You know, like a bogus, this bogus thing here. This, the whole thing. And then the whole bogus thing with Trump's alleged, his WWE assassination attempt. The whole thing's just like a joke.
I was there going through the ashes of the World Trade Center.
He was there. That guy, he's a patriot. Here he is right here. He's got a big red circle around. Whenever there's a red circle, that's never good.
I was there at Fresh Kills.
I'm not asking you that.
I was
I'm asking
there,
you
Congressman.
were you the special agent in charge?
To show respect
You were not.
for a Secret
that's
Service
a bunch of
member
horse hockey.
that died on 9/11.
Oh, that you're trying to be.
Do not invoke 9/11 for political purposes.
Look at him go. Look at these little clowns go.
I'm not. I'm invoking this.
You are, sir.
Gentlemen,
And you are out of line.
I would like to ask him a question.
Please.
You are out of
Don't try
line,
to bully
Congressman.
me. Don't
Way
try
out
to
of
bully
line.
me. I am
Don't try to bully him.
elected member of Congress, and I'm asking you a serious question, and you are
I
playing
am a public
politics.
servant who has served this nation and
You
spent
won't answer the
time
question.
on our day, on our country's darkest
Mr.
day.
Chairman, you will not answer-
Our country's darkest day. Don't
Politicize it.
Committee will
Don't try to
come to order.
politicize.
I'm asking you serious questions for the American people, and they're very simple. They're not trick questions. Were you the special agent in charge that
No,
day?
I wasn't. I was there
Oh, no,
representing
Mr.
the
Chairman,
United
I'm
States
just
Secret
asking you yes or
Service,
no.
sir.
Mr. Fallon, your
and
time's
did not
expired.
affect protective
Fallon,
You know
operations.
why you were
time's
there?
expired.
Because you wanted to be visible, because you are auditioning for this
I was
job.
there to
that
pay
you're not gonna
respect for a
get
fallen
till
member of
January
this
20th.
agency.
You endangered
You are
President
out of
Biden's
line,
life,
Congressman.
Vice President
You are out of
Harris's
line.
life, because you put those agents out of position.
Mr.
Because you have a
Chairman.
radio with
Mr.
you.
Fallon,
You
your
were
time
a vet.
has
You have a
expired.
weapon.
Mr.
No.
I did, sir.
So
and you are out of line.
Mr. Chairman.
You were out of line. So he's saying that this guy wanted to get in the photo, so he took the guy's spot who should have been there, who was the guy who was in charge of the operations of security. And now this guy's claiming that he put them in jeopardy by doing that. And I don't know if this guy is applying for this job. Maybe he's one of Trump's appointees. I don't know if they're even ready to do that. I mean, must be for Biden, because Trump's hearings don't begin till a month. I'm not sure what the context is here, but this just doesn't bode well. That was just two little boys yelling at each other. Okay, so I want to go to Britney J. Spears here. Today is Friday, December 6th, before she erases her Instagram account. Now, I haven't covered Britney about 6 months. Little baby giving the finger there, innocently, and not knowing what it's doing. But Britney's got a lot of flowers. She likes the roses. It's like her Illuminati symbol. And she seems to be doing all the stuff she was doing before. Microchip, is that what that is? Posing and not acting like an adult, like a teenager. There's a video over here. One of these videos, she's dancing. I'm going to go into that. But first, let's go to this one here. This is her, this is the one that person sent to me.
I'm not really sure why the paparazzi have me going on a plane looking like I'm wearing a Jason mask. It doesn't even look like me. I don't know why I have a torch in my hand, honestly. I think my friend accidentally gave that to me. But anyways, it's my birthday. I'm not turning 42. I'm turning 5 this year. I'm turning 5 years old, and I have to go to kindergarten tomorrow. It's baby strawberry, a very, very cute baby cake that my friend got. It's baby strawberry.
So this little girl thing is very disturbing. Like, even if she was trolling, best case scenario, she's trolling, and this is just a joke. She doesn't have, people don't have the ability to comment anymore. And she used to read the comments and interact with the commenters. And so she's, got divorced, and it's been about 6 to 8 months since I've seen anything from Britney. I guess I've seen some stories about her, but I haven't really covered her. I don't remember the last time I made a video that included Britney. YouTube was demonetizing my videos because she was dressed too scantily. And we'll see if they do that here, because they seem to be less apt to do that, at least now, which I talk about sometime later in the, whatever. Or I talk about it in the introduction, why YouTube does it. But either way, she, talks in a very childlike voice, which is so disturbing. And people who have been MK Ultra'd or whatever, this is the kind of thing that happens. They regress and they become little children, especially if there's sexual abuse when they're very young and things like this. But, she's 42 years old, and I mean, Jesus, fuck, Britney. Just, make it stop. It's just she's just a nightmare out there. She's just like this, this poster card for beta sex kitten thing or whatever they have, right? When I landed in this exotic, beautiful place, my phone kept showing the same 2 pictures. I'm like, what is my phone trying to tell me? I'll literally go call or text it, and these 2 pictures pop up. It kept showing me my foot when it was broken and a picture of a church. So I was like, I've been safe with it because I think I've been in a confident place in my head. So I want to find my real body. The one that would never do something if I didn't want it to. The healing starts with the mind first. I know at one point in my life, it literally wasn't even my body, just from everything it was forced to do. So many things I disagreed with. Well, it was humiliating, so now I'm definitely feel a spiritual transformation. I know this sounds crazy, but just owning my feet. I don't want to go to the gym. I want to do is move and feel alive, or just move, just a mood, and have moments like where I'm like, what the F was I doing? Because it's been a long time since I've been a way to play. I'm dancing, and it feels so good to let go. I guess I could dance studio, but I like a small place. Okay, so this is her. There she goes, touching. Oh, pointing. Yeah, all right. Yeah, that's my body. That's my body. Look out. That's my body. That's slapping my butt. I'm pointing the finger. Oh, look at this. Look, I'm sassy. I'm getting sassy. I don't have broken feet anymore. I'm gonna own my body. I'm gonna own my body. Look at me. Look at me wiggle my hips. Look at me tickle the camera. There you go. I'm gonna pray. Do my thing. Oh, the hand. My hands are out. Hey, look. I'm opening up. Opening up to the world. There's my hair. Hey, we walk away from him. Come back. See, I'm sassy. Get sassy. Like so, up and down. Whoa. All right. We haven't done a Britney dance in a while. There, point. I'm pointing at you. Yeah, there you go. Open it up. All right. Britney dance. We haven't seen this in a while. She's wearing her leopard skin. She's only 5 years old.
Obama during this Kamala Harris administration, it changed my opinion of that guy.
I don't understand how we got so toxic, so divided, and so bitter.
He said he wanted generals like Adolf Hitler had. Donald Trump said that.
Did you have a high opinion of him before?
Yeah, I did. I did, just as an intelligent person, a statesman. He's probably like caught up in the system. It's very difficult to make real meaningful change. You think you're going to do something, and then you get into office, and you're like, oh, God, what a quagmire this place is. But watching him just straight up lie about Trump.
The childish nicknames, the crazy conspiracy theories, this weird obsession with crowd sizes.
The thing that got me was that very fine people thing, the white supremacist thing. They just kept trying to say that he was a racist.
When he's not complaining, he's trying to sell you stuff. You're running for president and you're hawking merchandise. Gold sneakers, $100,000 watch. Why are you selling a watch? What are you doing?
Which is this thing that I think worked in like 2017. I don't think it works anymore. I don't think people believe it anymore. We've gotten numb to all this stuff. Obama during this.
So I want to comment on this. There's another Joe Rogan thing coming up about Joe Rogan with Chris Cuomo. Some guy lights Chris Cuomo up for the ivermectin stuff. But, you know, him saying that he respected Obama, like what is really mind-boggling about the whole thing is this. That Obama didn't want Kamala Harris. We now know from my last video, I mean, we knew this already, that they weren't all psyched about Kamala Harris. Nobody was. Because he screwed everybody. Joe Biden effed everybody by making her vice president. She was insurance policy because she was basically unelectable, right? He picked her because he had to pick someone. He had to pick a woman. So he, Biden boxed himself in a corner. They said, they're pressuring him to pick a woman. He said he's definitely going to pick a woman for vice president. Like he just said, he wasn't going to choose the best person, and they never do. The vice president is never like somebody that is considered going to be a good president. They don't pick a star. They pick a Ed McMahon to Johnny Carson. For you younger people, Johnny Carson used to host the Tonight Show, the Jimmy Fallon show. And Ed McMahon was his sidekick. And Ed McMahon would come out and do some comedy before the show, before they taped to warm up the audience. And it was never going to be as good as Johnny Carson's. Like the comedy wasn't, the jokes were going to be subpar. They'd be funny, but not, to the audience or whatever. But they were never going to be as good as the main guy, right? Like the people who have sidekicks like Flavor Flav, the vice president's like a Flavored Flav, like a wingman, somebody who hypes up a hype man. Or somebody who's like Joe Biden. Like Joe Biden was that guy. Like Joe Biden wasn't ever going to be a bigger star than Obama. Joe Biden was considered a bumbling fool who made a lot of, gaffes and bad decisions. Dan Quayle was the guy, right, for George H. Walker Bush. Dick Cheney was not a person that could ever win presidency. Dick Cheney was unelectable. He was like cold and nobody liked him, right? So you look at the vice presidents, and they almost never are going to win presidency. Al Gore like almost did, but you think of vice president, you're next in line to be president, and you're getting experience, but usually you're used as they throw you under the bus a lot, and you're used to deflect. You're like a punching bag or a shield for the president. You're doing things, they're putting you out there to act the fool. so the president can look good. So the president they don't pick a quality person for vice president. You know, Sarah Palin, for a while, she was like a bigger star than John McCain. Like, she was more liked and more popular than John McCain when she first came on the scene, and that was a problem. It's problematic. And then they torpedoed her, like, you know, they threw her under the bus. I mean, of course, she torpedoed herself because she was a moron. But, you know, these are the kind of things that happen to VP and VP picks. Tim Walz is going to disappear. It's probably one of the reasons they didn't pick Josh Shapiro, because he had more star power than Kamala Harris. And maybe he didn't even want to do it because the vice presidency, you know, in Kamala Harris's position, it was likely Joe Biden wasn't going to make it through his first term. And so there was all of that, right? So that's that's all of the, that's everything. And so they picked Kamala Harris, and Joe Biden did his insurance policy, threw under the bus when he made her border czar, when the border was in crisis, and he really didn't like her. And that's like coming out now. All these insiders are talking about how they never really got along. And so then he waited too long to withdraw, and they waited too long, the Democratic Party, to get rid of him because they didn't want to primary him. And because they wanted Kamala Harris. I mean, his team at least had some control over Kamala Harris, the Biden team. And so they picked Kamala. He picked Kamala, and they just, everybody threw their hats and everybody rallied around her, but they didn't want her. And it's been said over and over again now that all these people were not into Kamala Harris, and Biden and Obama was one of them. Obama didn't want Kamala Harris, and nobody thought she could win. But Obama comes out and puts his credibility online, and Obama had a big coalition, and the kind of voters that they needed for Kamala Harris, the demographics that supported him, he was supposed to rally those demographics. And he didn't, because people don't give a shit about other people endorsing, whether it's Beyonce or any of these other people, as Taylor Swift or Obama. And it was a big fail for Obama, and he went all in on Trump. And, he hemorrhaged a lot of his credibility and his relevancy by doing that. It makes no sense because he didn't want her in the first place. And most of the people in the Democratic Party were kind of eyeing 2028 because they realized this thing was fucked. So like the whole thing is very silly. Like, it doesn't make sense, right? The way that they played it out, because they all went all in on Trump, and Trump is now gone. And now 2028 is going to be a completely different situation. I don't know if J.D. Vance will have any relevance there, but he isn't, we'll see how he's utilized the next 4 years. And we don't know what's going to come out of the Republican Party is going to shit out as a candidate. And the Democratic Party, they're in chaos, right? And they're in debt again and all that shit that happened last time. And they have now 2 rigged primaries and a third primary where they didn't even have a primary. And they had a senile president for a while, and his ditzy, knee pads, undeserving candidate. And so, they're a mess, and their donors are pissed off, and it seemed like they did a lot of money laundering, and they just stole some large portion of $1 billion in donations and ciphered it amongst themselves, right? And so, to say that he had respect for Obama and doesn't now, I mean, the whole Democratic Party, the establishment is bad. Everyone who's in it, but the Democratic Party just has imploded. Okay, so this guy is Dave Smith. I never heard about him before. He has a PTB podcast. Okay, so I'm editing, and he's a guest on this other guy's podcast. And he's just going to absolutely light Chris Cuomo up. Chris Cuomo could have easily avoided this by not being a douche. He just couldn't do it. He just could not turn off his... I used to have this thing with... they used to have the handoff or the handover. Chris Cuomo was supposedly friends with Don Lemons, who fake cried when Chris Cuomo got fired. Remember all that stuff. But they would have this handover, where Chris Cuomo's show would end and Don Lemon's show would begin. And sometimes it went on for 10 minutes into Lemon's show. And they were just so douchey. And I created this thing called the douche off. And I would do, points or whatever, and there'd be a winner, but they were both, equally douchey in one way or another. And so Well, let's get into this here. One of my viewers sent this to me on Instagram, but I didn't even realize this would be okay to be put on YouTube. YouTube has relaxed a lot of their medical misinformation stuff.
Rogan's show, Glenn Greenwald has a show, Tim Pool has it. All these people have shows. And we all disagree about so many things. But the one thing we kind of all agree about in this area is that we opposed the COVID insanity. That was kind of the thing that united all of the shows on the internet that are big. And it was a strange fit for you to come from CNN into this world. It kind of reminds me, it's like Dick Cheney trying to join the anti-war movement or something like that. And the truth is...
So this is what he's saying. Like, him and Don Lemons, they shilled for CNN. And they both said that they were saying things they didn't necessarily believe in. You know, they were being handled. I mean, in their different ways, both of them admitted this, right? This is what this guy's saying here. And then all of a sudden they didn't have a show and they were disgraced. I mean, Cuomo's was disgraced by his brother and things that he did with his brother, but it was more than just that. Being in the basement for COVID, the way that he handled the basement segments, but he was great in the basement. That was the best. That was Cuomo's at his best, right? And then he came out of the basement. They made a big deal about his wife wouldn't hug him, remember? Let me show you that clip. That's just great.
All right, let's do a little bit of we here in terms of what this Georgia reopening means for the rest of us.
Okay, so Chris Cuomo pretended he was in the basement for a month or so when he had COVID, right? And a guy saw him out, a guy with fat tire biker, those bikes with the fat tires. And Chris Cuomo went on some radio show and was slamming the fat tire biker. They caught him out in like wherever that place is, to see the shore where all these rich people, the Hamptons, where all these rich people go from New York, right? And so, but he did escape the basement. But in terms of his CNN show, he did it from the basement, and it was great. It was really entertaining. Like I didn't appreciate it as much as I should have back then. I didn't watch a lot of it, but what I saw was kind of hilariously bad.
Obviously to the people there, and a little bit of me here as well. We had a huge day today in Casa Cuomo. Take a look at this.
So he was really back in his basement, but he really wasn't.
All right, here it is. The official re-entry from the basement. Cleared by CDC. A little sweaty. Just worked out. Happens.
It happens. It happens when I work out.
This is what I've been dreaming of, literally for weeks. My wife,
she's like, don't mount me. Now, this was a whole thing, right? So he's supposed to be in the basement, and she's like, go back to the basement. Go back to the basement, troll, like ogre. Like she wants no part of him, right?
She was cleared by the CDC. She doesn't have fever. She doesn't have the symptoms anymore, more than 7 days from her quarantine. But we're still a little scared, so I'll just give you one of these. 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 Bella has, of course, taken the video. This is the dream. Just to be back up here, doing normal things.
The kids know that he's bullshitting because he was doing things with them. He was out in public like 2 weeks ago, so it was all lies.
Let's bring in Dr. Sanjay.
Okay, so this is what this guy's saying, that, it was just not him. It was Tucker Carlson who was, he was fired for being more edgy and more of kind of a truther, whatever. I mean, none of these guys are like real truthers. They are what they are. Like, you can't categorize people, but they're less in terms of carrying the mainstream narrative, right? And Cuomo's backed away from this now. He's at Newsmax, but he was on his own for a little bit. He has an own YouTube. And this is what this guy's saying, that you were such a piece of shit shill for the COVID agenda, and then you came out and started to say things about it after it's all, when it's too late, right? After the damage has been done. I just realized this. I went to render that little clip. Let's get after it. Let's get after it. Let's get after it. They don't get after shit on CNN. Let's get after it. Get after what? Get after you sucking? Get after you guys shilling for the mainstream story? get after you guys just doing whatever your handlers and your advertisers like Pfizer and Big Pharma and the CIA and the intelligence community and all these, the government and the Democratic Party tell you what to say, right? Well, what are you getting after? Like, what can you possibly be getting after?
That what really was I think incredible to me and to many people was that it was kind of amazing to watch you admit so many of the things that you admitted on the podcast with Pat, but at the same time you laughed off the idea of an apology. Yeah. Your first thing you said was apology. No way. There's no way. And then you proceeded to go on to confirm what all of us had known for so long, but you, sir, were smearing people like us for having this view. You were, at the time when the COVID insanity struck, you were the #1 show at CNN. A time when the nation...
That's amazing, but that's not really amazing because CNN sucks so bad that Cuomo's was the #1 show. I mean, think about that. Cuomo's, right? Like CNN fired him, and then, of course, Don Lemon's wasn't doing as well when Cuomo left, and now they got a hole there, right? But with all the bad shit that they have on there, Cuomo's was the #1 show.
Was going through a major crisis, and totalitarianism swept throughout all 50 states. Actually, -1, I think South Dakota never had lockdowns. 49 out of the 50 states went totalitarian.
They didn't have lockdowns, but they did have a dog get killed at 13 months. I think that's what happened in South Dakota. So we got to get the facts. We'll keep
it was
going.
something, I think Kim Jong-un was involved.
Right.
I'm not sure about the details.
Right.
But during this moment, we really needed people, especially people who had a big platform. You were the #1 show at CNN, which is huge, almost as big as this show. And...
He's taking a big shit on. I've never heard of his podcast.
And it seems to me that you, rather than doing what your job should have been at the time, which was to be skeptical of power and to shine a light against the propaganda, it seems like you ate up every single piece of propaganda, repeated all of it without any thought to whether it was true or not, and then smeared millions of Americans, like myself, who were opposed to this stuff. So that's where my beef is.
Chris.
I understand your beef. Why would I not apologize? An apology is when you say something that you shouldn't have said, that was wrong to say, that you said for bad reason, or you're trying to hurt. None of those apply. I hear your understanding.
So, I'm not a big apology person. Like and we say things just because they're what we do culturally. But saying thank you to people, even those things, and you're welcome, like somebody saved your life, hell, thank you, it depends on what degree of whatever they've done. And thank you, and, I'll say those things because I have to. But it's not like you erase the debt. Somebody's actually done something for you, and you're thanking them, right? It's just courteous or whatever it is. But apologies are even worse because, when I worked in treatment centers with kids and then I had my own kids, it became like, do we force the kid to apologize if it doesn't come from somewhere inside of them? I mean, you're training them to do something, but are they really sorry, right? And then people will say they're sorry when they're really not, or maybe they feel sorry in the moment, but they're going to go do the same thing again later, right? And so not really about that. It's about admitting you're wrong, which is what Cuomo's real crime is. Admitting you're wrong and admitting why you were wrong and what you did. What was the handlers at CNN and what was expected of him and why you did what you did. Because what he did was wrong. What all these people did was wrong. And then admitting these other people know more than you because they were right. And that's what, in the truth community, we've been on the right side of these things, the good truthers, the real ones, because it isn't that hard. It's the constraints of the mainstream media and the social conventions and the money and the advertisers like Pfizer and things like this that make it hard to tell the truth for these people. But for all of us who are independent of that, it's not hard. if we're not coming in with a prejudiced, we're prejudging a situation because of our political beliefs, right? If we're free from all of that, it's very easy to be right about what's going on because it's very obvious. Like, it's not like, it doesn't take some mastermind, right? But, for Cuomo's and these people, it does, because they had handlers, and CNN has, they have advertisers, and they have a limited bandwidth that they can talk about. So for Chris Cuomo's to keep his show, just like, I covered this with Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith was really hard on Kyrie Irving. It started off with COVID, and then it got personal, and then it got personal with his dad. But Stephen A. Smith admitted he had issues with the vax, but he, Disney, ABC, Disney, ESPN, he works for ESPN, was, he was getting $8 million a year, and now he's got an even bigger contract. And he didn't want to give up his $8 million a year. And so there's a woman on who was fired because she didn't want to take it because she was trying to get pregnant with her husband. They fired her. He didn't stand up for anybody, and he shit all over Kyrie Irving because, all the stuff that I said about the $8 million. Same thing with Chris Cuomo's. To keep his show, he had to do what he did. And then he got fired, and then all of a sudden now he's into telling the truth, right? And so, he's more honest, but he's things he wish he could have said but didn't want to lose his job.
Of the pandemic. I don't agree. I lived it closer than you in many ways. Closer than any of you, probably, in many ways.
You didn't. Like, I had COVID 3 times. And, I had a more realistic, I went and did what I had to do to regain my health. COVID, wrecked my body. I went into COVID with a suppressed immune system. I was just worn out from, my travels and, what happened in India, 18 years of a bad marriage. It ended in a horrific divorce, and having to reinvent my life at 50, I was just wiped out. My life had, I was depleted. My life energy wasn't what it was. And so when I got COVID, I was just in a weakened state. And COVID decimated my body in different ways. So I had to rebuild it. And I'm not into it. Like, I'm just, my thing is to just, exercise and live life. Of course, I eat, more healthy now. I used to not. But I avoid going to doctors, especially allopathic doctors and all that stuff, unless I really have to. But of course, prevention is a big thing for me, just in terms of a spiritual view of life, right? But, for him to come out and say that he had a different experience, because you were in the basement with that bullshit stuff that you did, right? Like, it's the arrogance of the guy. Like, he still thinks he knows more about COVID when he was on the wrong side of everything. And now he admits he was on the wrong side of everything, but he's still claiming he knew more.
And there were absolutely mistakes made. The idea that it was a totalitarian regime, that's hyperbole. My main reason for wanting to discuss this with you guys, I do this for 3 reasons.
Ratings. Ratings. He's trying to build a bigger audience. This is why. Just fucking be honest.
Reasons. A lot of people would say the first is that I'm a self-loather, and I like to set myself up in very bad situations.
He's a self-loather. Let's get after it. He's a self-loather.
Maybe, maybe not. I think there's a huge mistake being made in ignoring this conversation. Now, you say this world of podcasts. You're having a very limited definition of podcasts. You, Rogan, Poole, this is a very small part of what the podcast world is, right? You have a lot of different ideologies there.
I just got a phone call. Let's continue here.
The media, the power structures, do not understand why I would be here right now. I got the same message. I did a lot of prep for tonight because, frankly, this was years ago, and I had to go back and understand the context of time, look at what you were saying at the time, and frankly, the idea that you were ahead of understanding is like saying a broken clock is right twice a day. You didn't like things. You were right to not.
So, this is the problem with these fucking guys, right? We were right on so many different things. Like, he's saying all the stuff that's on the internet. It's just a section of all the bullshit that's on there, sure. But there is quality in the truth community and in the podcast community and whatever it is, right? That is much better than anything on the mainstream media. And of course, there's so many different, there's millions of YouTube channels, there's millions of podcasts, there's millions of these things, but they still think that we just get lucky, or we're just we oppose the government every time. So when the government makes a mistake, we're right. Like we're right all the time, right? Like we're just right because it's not hard to be right. Like they can't be right because the powers that be tell them what to say, right? Like it's just that fucking simple. They're told what they have to say. Because Chris Cuomo's and Don Lemon's both said they were being handled. As soon as they got fired, they said, all right, now I'm going to let I'm going to unleash my true message. And their true message sucks because they suck. But it's a lot more realistic. And all of a sudden now they're saying things that they used to say the exact opposite. And they used to come in hard on all the people, right?
Like them. I didn't like them. But to say you knew things is not accurate in terms of what I've seen and what you put out. They were operating on guesses. Now that gets much more powerful when we get into the vaccine. But in terms of the pandemic in general, the idea that we were doing things in the United States that were just so crazy is demonstrably false because it was
him saying they're acting on guesses where they're, it's more than just a guess, right? Like we don't have the resources to prove things scientifically. Nor do I have the ability to read scientific data. Like I don't have the ability to collect data, and to do it in a way that would be honest, not influenced by big pharma or something like that. And then if I did collect that data, I have no way of interpreting it. I'm not trained in that field. But in terms of what I do on a spiritual level, which is much more accurate, because the spiritual level is where the ultimate truth is. And so if you penetrate to a spiritual level, which I call the Ethernet, and you connect with the divine source, it cuts through all the bullshit. And science, the truth of science doesn't compare to that. The truth of science is, trying to find truth within an illusion. The mainstream, the third dimensional reality is illusionary. It's called Maya, right? I've talked about this. Like we live in a simulation, whatever that means. But it's illusionary. Our true self is our soul. And our body is now like our soul is what we are, and our body and the third dimensional world and our egos and our lives we're in a video game, right? And the soul is, outside controlling to some extent. The soul is on a different level because it's not like the same where you have controllers, like when you're in a video game, you're sitting there controlling, manually manipulating the character with your, the various buttons and, whatever else you have in your game console. But your soul is creating your body to go in this illusionary world. And so trying to find truth in this illusionary world is impossible because the world itself is an illusion. But if you penetrate to the spiritual, you will find truth. So for him to say guessing, at least in my case, that's not true, right? Because he's lumping us all in together. And, they explain their ass kicking that they're getting in the ratings due to that. Like we're guessing and sometimes we get it right. But what he has to do the hard, looking at the hard evidence. But the guy's going to play himself right here anyway.
It's happening everywhere else in the world. So it's not like just the U.S. decided to go batshit crazy and I couldn't wait for the ride. That's not the case.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, you couldn't. Like,
why I'm doing this is, here's my big concern. I have no problem with you laying into me. And I think you're funny, and I think you're smart, and I understand why he believes in you. I do. Because I didn't know who you were. Now I've listened to 19 hours of what you do. Why you want to call yourself, as somebody who ever wants to be in politics, Legion of Skank, I have no idea why you want to identify with that word. But we'll talk about that after this tonight.
Exactly. Let's get into the skank thing, because that's right up Cuomo's alley. And his brother, his brother got nipple barbells or something. Remember, he got these nipple rings, and like you could see them through his shirt. They were like barbells. If this guy's nipples pierced, and then he got. Remember, Andrew Cuomo's was going to be. They were going to replace Biden with Cuomo's in the 2020 ticket. They were talking about that for a while because Biden was fucking up. It was clearly, having dementia issues, and people were floating out the idea because Cuomo's was doing such a great job with COVID in New York until he got fired for taking all these people who were sick and putting them with the most vulnerable population of elderly people in nursing homes, and 9,000 people died that he covered up. Instead of firing him for that, which would have cost billions of dollars in lawsuits, they fired him for sexual harassment. And then Chris Cuomo's got fired for covering up. Remember, that's all how that went down, right?
Sure. Here's what I want, okay? And Pat knows this already. Do we know what the vaccine is doing in people's bodies right now? No. Do we know what COVID is doing in people's bodies right now? No.
No, so then why the fuck would you ever believe in the mainstream medical community? Because it's a biological weapon, because they lied about where it came from. They started off talking about how it came from an open-air market in bats. Remember when it was fucking caused by bats? And then they said it was pangolin. And then they said, well, maybe it's a lab. And then it was like, well, maybe the U.S. was involved with that lab. And maybe Fauci was involved with that lab, the NIH. And maybe we were going for gain of function. We were trying to make a biological weapon. And maybe it leaked, but maybe it didn't. Maybe it was intentional. I mean, they never got to that part. And that maybe the world wouldn't have gone along with it if it hadn't been intentional, if they hadn't known it was coming. And maybe they want to reduce the population because that's what fucking really needs to be talked about, because there is a legitimate population problem and systems are breaking down and they're having trouble feeding people and the economic system's breaking down. And maybe that everything's more desperate than they let us believe, because there is no too big to fail. And maybe all these things were there to, serve a bigger agenda that you guys weren't either told about or you guys couldn't figure out on your own. Maybe all those things, Cuomo.
I talked this week in preparation to be with you guys to two different people who are at the top of the research ladder of long COVID. That is a very pale distinction. They are
okay. So why are you trusting these people when they said it came from bats? That Fauci still won't admit it came from China or Wuhan, and it didn't come from China because China would be obliterated. Okay, if it did come from China, why isn't the world punishing China for leaking the virus? And if this did happen, where there's much worse stuff that they have, that they're doing biological manipulation on various diseases that could be like something where it would wipe out half the population. And once you have a lab leak of one thing, well, couldn't you have a lab leak of another? And so why not destroy all that bad shit that you made? Get rid of all of it. All these labs, get rid of every biological fucking weapon that you've made, because now you fucked up. Why isn't that being talked about? Like, isn't that logical? That once you fuck up on that level, like this is a huge screw up where, upwards of 7 million people supposedly died, economies were wrecked, and all the shit that COVID represented. And it wasn't even that bad. I mean, those of us that had it was weird, but it wasn't really deadly. Like, for most of us, it seemed like it was because you couldn't breathe, right? Or whatever, you experienced if you had a severe case of it. It was no treat when you had it. But it was, and God knows what else it's doing to us all now. I mean, maybe, some of us have gotten rid of it. I don't know if I have any left in me because I've done all these things that are supposedly supposed to get rid of the spike protein. Like, I feel much better now than I did before I had COVID, like my health and everything. I'm exercising, I'm doing well, but I still have some, once in a while, an irregular heartbeat and some of these other things, right? And so, I don't know if it's ever going to, it's going to be with us for the rest of our lives because maybe it's supposed to do that, right? It wasn't about killing people. It was about maybe, getting rid of people in terms of like their ability to reproduce or something. There's all kinds of unanswered questions. So why would you trust these motherfuckers that never gave you the truth and never found out where it came from and never found out what it's doing? Like these guys, and then how it morphed and it changed into all these different forms. I had 3 forms of COVID. Like I had 3 fucking forms of COVID, right? And so, why would you trust these motherfuckers? They created it, they leaked it, and they gave you bad information how to deal with it, and now you're going to trust them now, COVID? Fucking,
Paying very little attention to this. There are millions of people for whom COVID is not over. Every researcher I talked to said, we are understanding now that the reach of COVID You know, the flu that we have now is from 1918, right? Everybody knows that. It's just changed over time. They believe that this is happening with the COVID virus, which is in part why it's important to know where it came from, and they shouldn't have surrendered that. And we can talk tons about it, and I can talk to the doll as if it were Tony, but I don't.
They're covering it up. They know where it fucking came from. They're not telling us. They know where it fucking came from. It's silly. And the fact that you would allow people who failed so epically, just like with the banksters, when they ruined the economy with their derivatives and their bullshit, financial games and these, Ponzi schemes. And then they were tasked with fixing it. Like, you don't trust the people that created the problem and then lied to you about the problem and then never told you the truth about the problem and then didn't tell you what the solution was. Why would you ever trust that? And they were making money hand over fist because the problem was created, right? That's the other thing. The medical community, all these companies that made vaccines, they were paid money by governments and they were given, no scrutiny, no ability to be sued. Without any liability. And they rolled out these almost, basically mandatory vaccines that were the taxpayers had to pay for across the globe. And they made billions, if not trillions of dollars on that, just like everything else. And then all the health issues that people are now suffering because of COVID, because people are having secondary health issues, and now they're going and they have a COVID pill, they have all these things. They've doubled down, tripled down on their economic their economic boon that was created by this thing that they caused in the fucking first place, right?
I believe that he should be the boogeyman in this. I think China's the boogeyman, and they can't get at China, so they go with Tony. But we'll have the conversation.
They can't get at China, so they go at Tony. Fauci.
I want people to recognize and get behind a common cause. That's why I'm here, okay? This is not set up to go well.
It's not set up to go well for me.
For me, that's okay. I've been beaten up by, people I'd rather be around much less than you guys. So this is a step up.
But the ass kicking I'm about to receive, thank you, sir. May I have another?
We now consecrate the bond of obedience. Assume the position.
Thank you, sir. May I have another? Thank you, sir. May I have another? Thank you, sir. May I have another?
Okay, so I went for a walk. I got a Whole Foods delivery. My dogs and I went out for a walk. It's a beautiful sunny day here, even though it's like the coldest day of the year. We have a lot of gray days here in the winter, and I like it okay, for a month. But when it's 4 months, or whatever it is, right? Snow. When you have snow, it lights up the area because it reflects light. So you go to places that are really cold, and they get extra light because of the snow. You go out at night if there's a moon, stars, bright night, or you just, your street lights or house lights or whatever's out there. It reflects that light, and it's actually kind of bright out there. It's kind of like a winter wonderland. But when you're in those in-between places that get snow but doesn't stick, or it's either rain, freezing rain, it's just a kind of a nightmare winter, right? It's not, it's cold enough to be cold, but not freezing, not enough to accumulate like snow or whatever it is. But anyways, so I was out there with my dogs, and, I was thinking about all this stuff with Chris Cuomo because, this is the us against them kind of mainstream media versus people doing their own thing on the internet. But with Chris Cuomo's, he got fired, and for a while he did his own thing on the internet. And then he worked for Newsmax. Now he works for Newsmax, which is, again, it's trying to be legitimate, but it's not legitimate. It's kind of in between what we do here. And, it's got a cable show. He's got a cable show that you get on like cable news, but no one knows where the fuck that is. Like I couldn't tell you, it's somewhere between Fox and MSNBC, right? Or something, right? Or BBC or whatever it is. But there's so many of these different news shows, and he isn't getting, anywhere near the ratings that he got before. But for a while, he was one of us. He was an unsanctioned, unlegitimized person talking his shit on the internet, right? Which is what all of us do here. But he was doing that, still thinking of himself as a legitimized part of the establishment. And the problem with that is that the establishment is, the kind of lies that all of us tell. We can be working to be more truthful people. We can eventually maybe even be complete truth tellers, depending on what we end up, evolving into. But until we know the truth, we can't tell the truth, right? Until you know the truth, you can't tell the truth. And all of us are in that situation where we don't know the truth. We might be closer than other people, but we don't know the truth, right? We haven't experienced the full truth of the human experience, the spiritual experience. I mean, it really comes from your spiritual evolution, where you understand the material world from a spiritual perspective. And most people haven't even sniffed that. Like they haven't even taken their first step onto the spiritual path. And so they're just wandering around lost, trying to figure out the truth in a land of lies, in a world of lies, right? In a world of illusion. Like it's like you're you're into some sort of psychedelic LSD shrooms type of, you're having some kind of hallucination type experience. You're in a hallucination and you're trying to make sense out of everything. But your reality has been distorted by some sort of, whatever chemical or whatever it is that's making you see the world in a way that's not accurate. And we're all in a hallucination for a certain extent, right? But for Cuomo's to sort of keep on trying to demean what we're doing here by calling it guessing, for me specifically, I'll just talk about what I do here. Because my connection to, spirituality, my connection to, working towards having a connection with the divinity that's within me through the Sajmark practice affords me a level of intuition and insight that other people who aren't doing that don't have, right? Like I might be a slacker, which I am, and I might be whatever I am in terms of anything that I do. But I have access to a higher level, a more accurate level of truth than the normal person. And so that's what makes my show valuable here. And an example of this is after COVID hit, one of my viewers said, you predicted this. And I said, what? And, he said, you predicted this. I mean, a comment. And I was like thinking, what's he talking about? And I found the video. It was a video where Bill Gates was talking his shit. And I said, well, it's time to boost our immune systems because it looks like they're going to release something, like just based on what he said. And that was just my intuitional hit. I'm not a big Bill Gates person. I covered him a little bit. I'm not a big, disease person. Like there's different types of things that we all focus on. And I never focused on that. But I was 100% right on that thing, right? I was accurate because of my spiritual connection. And I predicted something. Other people predicted it. But they were using, more the evidence that was there. But I heard Bill Gates say something. And the idea came to me that this thing that later became COVID, and then I forgot all about it. Like I had no idea I had done it until this person posted a comment. There's people who leave butthurt by something I say, and they come back years later after they realized I was right. And so all of that I can attribute to my spiritual practice and my connection to the Sajmark system. Like I can attribute, all the good things that I provide here, in terms of this show, right? And my show is, and again, of course, I'm biased, but, and you guys are biased too, but in terms of my ability to produce content, I mean, Chris Cuomo only produced content that in most cases should be mocked. Occasionally he has a good discussion with guests. Like he has some maybe valid points. I don't watch his show enough to whatever. But when he sold himself out to CNN, then he has pigeonholed himself as somebody who could be compromised. And his opinion, when he came out and Lemons came out and said, well, now we can tell you guys the truth. Right? Now that CNN has fired us and we don't have our cushy jobs, we can now tell you the truth. And every one of these people, whether it be Joe Rogan or it be, Tucker Carlson or it's any number of people, and Alex Jones, of course, any of these people, any time that they've been compromised, where, especially if they never come clean, like if they came clean, and yeah, maybe you could redeem yourself, right? Of course, Trump. But, when they say to you that I am suppressing the truth because the job I used to have, well, you know, then you're compromised forever because it means that you would take money to lie to people. That's what all this stuff means. Every fucking athlete that tries to sell you something, every celebrity that tries to sell you something that they don't really use because they're getting money, right? You know, when I was, I talk about how I went to this Ponzi scheme thing, a pyramid scheme. I just got back from India, my first trip to India, and I was settling in New Mexico, and I couldn't get a job. I was in Albuquerque, and I couldn't get a job, which was bizarre. And so I was going through the want ads. You know, I didn't have a computer then. I mean, any of these things. I was just going through the want ads. This is 1995 or 4 or 5. And I found a job that's like, hey, if you love sports, and you know, it's like this, you know, dream scenario. I knew it was a bullshit thing, but I went anyway. And it turned out to be a pyramid scheme. And there's this guy, he used a rhino as his emblem, and he showed you his house and his yacht and his, you know, his Lamborghini or whatever it is, and that was his documentation of how he made his wealth. And it was a clear pyramid scheme, and I've talked about this in other videos. But at some point, he rolled out Ted Danson, and Ted Danson is just vouching for this fucking guy. And the guy's clearly these are films that he shows. The place was basically a storage unit that had cement walls that were painted black, and a bunch of like artsy photos on the wall with kind of cool lighting to make it look like it was fancy. But it was the kind of place that could pack everything up in a truck and get out of there as soon as everyone realized that they were running a pyramid scheme, right? Like it was a whole, you know. And Ted Danson was willing to vouch for this guy because he paid him, right? And so if you're someone who takes money and is compromised, you know, all of us are limited on YouTube, for example. You know, and I can say to you that there's things I can't say because I'm censored. And there's other things just based on social conventions and things that I can't say as direct as I would want to, but I still find a way. And I'm still honest about that. And I'm still honest about my own perception, right? But if you take money and you're saying at some point you're admitting that you weren't able to say what you actually believe, then why the fuck would anybody listen to you? Like, why the fuck would anybody listen to Chris Cuomo's or any of these other people? And I'm not talking about being wrong. Because when we're talking about the truth, you're only, like I said, able to tell the truth you understand and see. And so, you know, as people, for the most part, they don't want the truth. They want the truth that they want to hear. And so people can say they're truth seekers, but they're full of shit, right? Because they're not looking for the truth. You know, if you were a truth seeker, the first thing you would do is find all the painful truths that would shatter your world, shatter your worldview, shatter your ego and your persona. Things about yourself, things about your family, things about your religion, the things that you don't want to hear. If you're a truth seeker, that's what you would do. Find the truths that would basically cause you to have, you know, like almost like a breakdown, or, you know, not to go that far, but, you know, something that would shatter your worldview, where it would take a while for you to you know, adjust to it, to accept it, right? You have to go through the 5 stages of grief or whatever, you know, like I talk about gratitude being the real stage that you have to get to be grateful for something. But, you know, go through all the pain of realizing things that you don't want to see or hear. And so nobody wants all that shit, right? Very few people want that. And so as much as truth as I tell people here, it causes me to lose audience members, because Trumpers don't want to hear the truth about Trump, and, you know, flat earthers don't want to hear truth about their movement, and, you know, whatever it might be. Like, people come and they come with you know, like these caveats. You can tell me the truth, just not about this. And I get comments every day like that. And the comment is basically a person saying, you can tell me the truth, but don't say shit about the Bible, because I can't hear that truth. You don't tell me the truth about the Bible, because I can't handle it. You know, whatever it might be. And so these guys will always have a bigger audience than me, because they are pandering to people's weaknesses and the lie, you know, and basically the lies that they want to believe in, right? And so there is different levels of accuracy in any kind of field. And, you know, something like this, which is about presenting whatever's going on. And we all have our skills to analyze things. And my skills rest almost 100% in my I'm a dyslexic and I'm introverted, and my spiritual connection. And then, of course, I have a sharp mind, and I'm able to make fun of things, and I can do joke. I have my own abilities and my own personality configuration, right? But I have the freedom to do that because I don't have a freaking boss. I'm not answering to Pfizer. My partner YouTube is answering to Pfizer, so that makes things difficult, right? But I'm not answering, and so I have to deal with the YouTube part, but I don't have to deal with these angry sponsors and angry handlers and an audience. I'm not pandering to some audience. I don't care how small my audience gets or whatever. I mean, it gets to the point where I can't support myself, then I go do something else, right? But my show has so much more value than these other shows because of that. Certainly anything that Chris Cuomo's a part of and any of these people that are in the mainstream media, because of the idea that this is coming from a connection with divinity within me. And that to me is what I value, is people who have something going on, even if they're not actively pursuing a relationship with God, that they are without their knowledge and commitment, they have some sort of connection to God, and this information is coming to them. And they have a good perspective, and they're able to speak truth through this connection. But they can't diminish or demean the connection or censor the connection, which is what most people do.
Has to be a review of the entire pandemic. A 9/11 style commission, where you get people who Dave likes.
Yeah, but that commission failed. See, this is look at this just fucking face right here. This is this confused. He's got these crazy eyes. He's always got these crazy eyes, like people whose eyes aren't right. You can see where he loses it. He's got a temper, and it gets a little crazy. But what he's just this is his inner condition. You're seeing what this guy is on the inside. This is what he is. This fucking face right here. That's what the guy is on the inside, right? That's a good reflection of his inner condition. And the reason I'm able to stop at these places is because oftentimes you see an expression and you know what's going on the inside. That's what's going on Chris Cuomo's inside. Did you hear what he just said? He said we need some sort of commission, a governmental commission, to find out why the government and the powers that be failed on COVID. Well, that's stupid as fuck, right? Why would you have the same people who are connected to the same powerful agencies or connected to big pharma, and they have to answer to they're pals and friends with all these people that they would have to, go through? It's stupid. It would never fucking work, right? It's just the opposite of what would be effective. It's stupid shit. Why are you even saying something so fucking stupid, right? We have to have a governmental commission and find out, we got to get the thing that's lying to people regularly, withholding information, and they already know what's going on. They just won't fucking tell us, right? If they released a biological weapon or it was accidentally released, then they fucking know. They always have access to information that they don't share. That's why there's there's the three-letter agencies, right? The intelligence community. Their job is to lie to the American people and the world and create disinformation. You have governmental groups that are just there to lie. Every candidate, every political organization has publicists and teams of people, spin doctors that are there to change the perspective and lie and try to convince the American people, gaslight them of one issue or another. That's all they fucking do. Let's have a fucking commission. Look at this motherfucker right here.
Who Pat likes, who scientists like, who the right likes, who the left likes. We did the same thing after 9/11, and it worked.
Oh my God. Are you serious? It fucking totally didn't work. You're so far from it did the opposite of working.
None of them were currently in office. All of them were respected enough. They had a diverse set of opinions. They looked at the situation. They came up with a set of directives, and we followed almost none of them. So it can be flawed as well. You have to look at what...
Okay, so the thing sucked, but you even just said, why you even say something? We followed almost none of them. This is... You have to... The truth about... This is the simple truth about COVID and the medical model, is that it's for profit. And the profit is the better customer. So if you start off with a model for medicine that's for profit, it's about profit. It's profit driven. And so what's the most profitable aspect of the medical model? How is it profitable for doctors? How is it profitable for the pharmaceutical companies? all of the insurance companies is if people are chronically ill. Because if they're chronically ill, then they spend more and more of their money either on higher insurance premiums, they'll pay even more money for drugs that they need, right? You can overprice the shit out of drugs when people are diabetics and they need insulin, and you have a ability to you have exclusive right to those drugs. You can charge whatever fuck you want when people need life-saving drugs. If you're taking a drug that's keeping your heart going, what are you going to pay for that drug? How much of your income will you pay for something that's preventing you from having a fucking heart attack, right? And so when you have for-profit medicine, it all becomes about having sick people, keeping them sick and making them sicker and taking up more and more of their resources, keeping them, healthy enough so they can do their fucking slave jobs, so they can pay money. I mean, some people are paying half of their income to the medical community, right? And so that's all you need to know about COVID. We have for-profit medicine. That's what that for-profit medicine means, that you being sick is good for business. And you can't trust people who are doing that, right? Because they want you to be sick, right? They benefit from your suffering.
You didn't like early on. Masks, lockdowns, understanding of the case structure, what we did in schools, what we did in communities, what we did with businesses. Then came Operation Warp Speed, what we did with that. Then came the implementation of the vaccine, how we did that, and why. Mandates. All of it should be reviewed, because I'm going to tell you something. No disrespect, okay? I study this all the time.
Oh, my God. So this is where you're an expert. And what you're saying here is just what fucking morons say. Because we all know it's all bullshit. Everything that you said we know has failed, and we know why. Because of for-profit medicine. Again, look at this guy. Look at his expression here. He's about to tell everyone he knows more than they do. This audience of people who are right. See, this is the thing. The one thing that I have, because I don't have a big audience. I don't have anything close to what Joe Rogan has. I don't get the kind of, pats on the back from people. I don't value that, but I don't have the kind of financial success. I don't have the kind of audience, all these things. Just talking about myself and doing this, right? And the only thing that I have other than, working for God, which is the big thing, that I'm doing what I have received so much from the Sajmarg method of meditation and from, the divinity that is all pervading in the universe. The things that I've received in this life that they're bigger than any sort of personal egotistical success or anything like that. In fact, they're the opposite of that, because it's something that comes from a divine place that, it just is so much more important than your egotistical view of reality and success and any of those things, right? But the one thing that I have is that I've been right, like just right on different levels that people don't even understand because of the system that I use, the divine system and these things. There might have been a little bit of a glitch there in the microphone, but I think you can hear what I had to say there. I'm not going to redo it, is what I'm saying. I saw that there was a brief flash in my microphone. But that's what I have, that I was right. And these guys will never acknowledge that. Not for me, not for you, not for the truth community. That we are better at this than they are. That I am, in every possible way, on many levels, more evolved in my way of presenting information than Chris Cuomo's. And again, this isn't me saying this egotistically, it's the fact, right? And he can't say that because he's limited to his level. And so from his level, he can't see what I do or what other people do that, do similar things to me. The people that are so far above his ability to present information and disseminate information and interpret information. And he thinks we're just guessing. Like that's his, like he thinks we're just, taking a fucking darts and just throwing it up against the wall and coming up with whatever answer that's there. Like he thinks it's guessing. Like that's why he said in the beginning of this thing, you guys are just guessing. Because he's so fucking remedial, it's like, an ant watching an airplane take off from the ground, right? And, of course, ants have the ability, some of them have the ability to fly and other insects, naturally. But it's watching the plane take off and saying, oh, that's just lucky. Like that just randomly happened, right? Like, no, there was some level of intelligence that went into understanding how we could fly, even though that we're not gifted with wings and these other things, right?
Okay? Sometimes I'm taken out of context. I'm not vaccine injured. I had my symptoms
But you said that.
before I got vaccinated. Could the vaccine be doing something to my body? Maybe.
What about your mind?
I don't mean to sound conspiratorial about it, but...
Oh, my God. No, it's not conspiratorial. I mean...
They do know that what they didn't know, and I'm sorry if it's too in the weeds, but I tell you, we can't just talk around this with clever slogans and digs. It's not helping us. We're not getting anywhere, okay? They now know that what they didn't know at the time with the vaccine development, even though they used it for AIDS and Zika and Ebola, they didn't know that when they put it in my body and they put it in your body.
Never made it into mine.
The rates, I mean, look, you can applaud it as a choice, but there are several facts.
You know, but you can applaud it because all of us who didn't get it, we're feeling fucking pretty good about ourselves, Cuomo's. Like, you have to deal with the fact, again, look at the expression here. Look at this motherfucker. Like, this is his inner world. He's confused, all this stuff. You know, he can articulate things like he's got something to say. He's trained, whatever journalistic training he's had, whatever position he's had. He's done this for a number of years. And so, the dopes that listen to him, it sounds like he is coming from a place of authority. You know, he can articulate things. You know, he's often a bumbling idiot, but he has some, I don't want to say charisma, something going on here that would make people think that he has some reason and something to offer them. When, like, if this is true, what we believe about the vax, if it's true, right, and like this other guy saying he didn't get it, then the people who didn't get it made a better decision than the people that did, right? Substantially so. But now that COVID's gone, and then, all of us who had it, all of us who had issues with it, like COVID, probably Cuomo and I based him, if he really had it, whatever he was going through in the basement, we had similar kind of experience. It lasted about the same length. It is whatever it is. I mean, of course, I didn't fucking do shit up in the basement. My life didn't change at all, basically, right? I was already social distancing. But, we had a similar experience. But in terms of, like, the people who do have the vaccine now in their system, it's something that they have put in their body, whether they felt forced, whether they had to do it for their job, whether they did it willingly. And then, the number of boosters they have, now it's not doing anything, right? COVID is morphed and changed. And they're saying that you need one every, you need a booster, right? Like, it's not, whatever you got isn't doing anything to prevent it in the future. But if it is doing damage, like that's, it's doing damage, right? If it is doing things that there are side effects to it, like all these medications, if it only is going to work if you take more and more of it, and the stuff that you already have in it, in your body is hurting you, and COVID itself is now morphed into something completely different, then, like, looks like we made the right decision. And so, like, you're speaking as a guy who made the wrong decision. Like, you're a loser in a room full of winners, right? Like, you're talking about how you're an expert. Because he's saying to these people, I study this, I know more than you, I like this stuff. Like, he's trying to tell them how he's more of an expert than they are, when everything you did was wrong. Everything you did was to just go along with the powers that be, and that turned out to be wrong. And now, you're saying we need a commission to figure out. Why don't you ask the people that made the right decision? And that's what sucks for all of us in the truth community. And it's not sucks because I don't even give a shit. Because I don't care what these fucking people think. I don't need their validation. But they never give it up. They never say, you guys were right and we were wrong. You guys, we should have listened to you and not me. He's still saying, no, you guys, I was wrong, but you guys should still listen to me because I used to work at CNN. And now I'm worked at Newsmax. And I know Fauci and met him personally, and I'm a part of the club. And since I'm part of the club, I know more than you guys. I just do. So you guys should still listen to me and not those other guys who were right all the time. Not the guys who made the right decision, saw it for what it is. And we need a commission of us guys to tell you guys what happened, even though you guys already know what happened because you're light years ahead of us.
Facts, okay, that we know. One is they didn't know how much spike protein my body would make or for how long versus his, okay? And that is huge in terms of deciding what kind of complications you can have. The idea that the vaccine is poison is demonstrably false. How do we know? Because of what happened once people started taking the vaccine here and everywhere else in the world. The correct pushback to that is, no, it hurt as many people as it didn't. That's bullshit. The correct pushback is, not everybody needed to take it. And you made everybody take it.
Okay, so when you say poison, like, are you saying that when people got injected, they would instantly die? Because, yeah, that was never the goal, right? But poison could be people have heart attacks 3 months later. Why are all these kids having heart attacks? Is it because of COVID? Is it because of 5G? Why are these athletes having heart attacks? Like, we don't know, but there's 3 new things. There's the vax, there's COVID, and there's 5G. And there's other things, I'm sure, as well. But all of a sudden, they're putting defibrillators in schools. Like, deal with that, Cuomo's, right? Like, this is, it's just silly. No one said, the people that said it was poison, well, then, it would not work if you just injected people and they all started dying. Like, every person who got the vax died, well, that would be fucking dumb. Like, who would do that? Like, who would literally give people poison? Like, they take, rattlesnake venom and start injecting into people saying it's a cure for COVID. Like, that's stupid. No one was going to do that. Like, these straw man arguments that he puts up, which he does here, this guy's going to tear him apart here in a second.
And you shouldn't have. That is a legitimate grievance. I don't know the answer to that. I believe that with the later variants, we now know that this vaccine didn't do what it did with the earlier ones. And they should have changed the messaging, and they didn't. We know that. I'm here to have the conversation. You tell me what you're upset about. I'll deal with it. We'll talk about why I said what I said. I have no secrets. But what I want is not to slap Dave around in a debate and not to be clever and not to get applause and not for you to want to take pictures with me at the end of the night.
Yeah, no, that's not going to happen. Like, good, because there's 0 chance of that happening.
I want you to go home and say, sheesh, we got to know a lot more about this and know.
There you go. Open up, Chris, and take it. Just like Kablanip Spaz Harris.
Body is looking. That commission we have, one in Congress, and then I'll shut up, is a sham, okay? Where did it come from? Tony Fauci. We know where it came from. It came from China. We know where it was. It was in a lab. We know who was working on it. It was China.
And also Fauci and the NIH, which is involved in gain of function.
Know who won't let us look in the lab. It's China. So that's your answer.
Okay, so then why does China still exist? Because they've released a biological weapon, either intentionally or unintentionally, and it doesn't matter. And then why do they not have epic sanctions, right? Why is everyone going along with it? Why isn't China getting obliterated right now in one capacity or another for what they've done to the world? Why is the world rejecting Chinese goods and boycotting China and fucking making them suffer for making, all these countries and people in the country suffer? Why isn't there some fucking payback, Cuomo's? Well, why? We'll explain that, Cuomo's. Why has China got such a hold on America and everyone else? And why did everyone embrace it instead of going after China? Like, wouldn't that be the smart thing? To blame it on China? Wouldn't that be the best thing for America, to blame it on China? And Dr. Fauci and all these people blame China. They're an easy target. Why not blame fucking China? Why are they covering for China? There's no thought here. Anyways, I want to get this other guy to come in because this is the big part here.
But what about all these other questions? They don't even care about them. The Trumpiest politicians that I talk to won't touch any of the things that we are talking about right now. That's what I want to change, and I'm happy to have the
This is this guy's podcast. I don't know who he is.
Conversation.
All right, can I respond?
Okay, so this is where this guy gets into it here. Okay, so the part we just saw is new to me, and it's hard to listen to Chris Cuomo's, but it was sufficient and I think important to debunk all the shit he was saying. This is the part I saw that came in an Instagram video.
Because there was a lot there, so I want to try to respond to as much
I
of
didn't
it
mean to
as I
flood the
can.
zone.
No,
We
no,
can
no.
take it one by one.
We can go one by one. Okay, first of all, when I described the lockdowns that swept this nation in 2020 as totalitarian, just to be clear, I'm not being hyperbolic. When you're waking up every morning to watch your TV, to find out from your governor what you're allowed to do today, including am I allowed to go to work? Am I allowed to have a funeral for my father? Am I allowed to see my family? Am I allowed to step outside without a cover on my face? There is one word and one word only for that, and that is totalitarianism. I'm sorry. That's not slightly hyperbolic. Now, you could argue that this totalitarianism was justified because of the virus, but it is certainly not, and it's not, but you could argue that, but it certainly is totalitarian. If we ever looked on paper, any of us at any point pre-COVID, and said, this government is instituting this policy, we would all recognize that as being totalitarian, as totalitarian as any society has ever existed. If that word doesn't apply to lockdowns, then it doesn't apply to anything. Now, I gotta say, listen, in this world, and I'll say this is true for our world, for the corporate media, for any time you're getting in front of a camera with a lot of people watching and talking about things that matter, the currency that we trade in is the truth. That's the whole currency. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to be right about everything, but it has to mean that I really believe what I'm saying. And if I'm lying to the audience, then I've betrayed my most fundamental duty. Right. And I would also put as a subset of lying, if I'm pretending I know something that I don't know at all, and I'm taking a very strong opinion, and with 5 minutes of research, you could find out that this is completely false, that's another form of lying. Now, sir, you have completely shirked all of your responsibility, and now you're pointing the finger at China. By the way, you were one of the people who demonized Donald Trump for calling it the China virus at the time, okay?
So this is like, again, this is the part I saw. But the part I saw is coming up when he starts talking about Joe Rogan. But, you know, like this is Cuomo's trying to rewrite history, right? I mean, all these people who were on one side of one thing, or in this case, COVID, and then are coming sort of towards the middle. Chris Cuomo's pitched all the things that the mainstream medical teams, including Sanjay Gupta, and all the, you know, the establishment stuff. He was the biggest shill because he had it. He was in his basement pushing this. And he pushed everything. And he demonized anybody who was going against it. You know, like I just saw, there's another video I'm going to put in my next video because I got enough Cuomo's today. But Cuomo's saying all these people celebrating the death of this CEO in New York City, you know, which I already covered a little bit in this video, are horrible people. Like he's slamming all these people. But, you know, when you've been such a piece of shit shill, you don't get to slam anybody. Because what this guy's saying is true about the currency that we all work with is the truth. Like people tune in to hear the truth. Everybody that's here for information, people that run to my channel for my opinion, they're doing that because they want to hear something that they wouldn't think of themselves, or they want to hear what I think about something, because they believe that I will tell them at least the truth about what I believe, right? That there's some authenticity and some sincerity here. You know, Trump is authentic, but he won't tell you the truth. Trump will listen to what will find out what you want to hear and just tell you that, right? And there's people who want that. There's people who want somebody to pander to them and lie to them. But then there are people who just want to get the fucking truth as best as they can. And they find the sources that they think are the most accurate. And so for people who listen to Chris Cuomo's, the sources are not, you know, I mean, it's pretty bad, right? And so these are people that are most vulnerable. Many of them are older people and people who are, you know, have grown up being indoctrinated to the idea that people on the news are truth tellers. And when you lie to them and they do things, COVID decisions based on your lies, and it hurts them, maybe even kills them, then you're a piece of shit, right?
So when it was convenient for you, you had no problem smearing someone for pointing the finger at China. Your entire network also called everyone racist if we speculated that it came from the lab. I mean, literally, I did a podcast, it was either in April or May of 2020, when it already became obvious at that point that the lab was at least a very plausible, you know, like We found out that 3 of the people at the lab went to the hospital with COVID-like symptoms, and there was a lab where they were doing gain-of-function research. And it was like, man, this sure does look like it. I had to stop talking about it for 4 months after that because I would have lost my entire YouTube channel, like that was it. It was very clear if you said anything about that for months, you'd be shut down. During that time, you guys at CNN were just mocking everybody who would dare say it was a lab leak, and then we were unable to defend ourselves, or those who did got their livelihoods ruined.
I don't know what was happening on YouTube. I just want to be clear. I was not doing that. When Donald Trump started off, he was calling it the
China virus.
Cold. No, not initially. Initially, he said it was going to go away. It was a cold. I don't fault him for that. He was getting a lot of mixed information, and I know it. I don't blame him for that. He will be blamed for it, not by me. Then it gets bad. That's when he started calling it the China virus. I said to him, in the beginning you said China's been great to us. You can Google it. You can have that great producer you have. Look it up. China's been great. China's been working with us.
Shout out to you, Rob.
China's been great. Yeah, Rob, you're amazing. Then it gets bad for Trump. Trump then starts calling it the China virus. I have always pursued the lab leak. I have always talked about it. I have always said it mattered. You can check and find out.
Okay, how about
you
this?
can boo, but remember,
well, listen,
that's about preference,
yeah, but
not
Chris,
truth.
do you not feel any responsibility for
So here, this is the thing here.
Fact that during this time, in the greatest crisis in modern American history, that you're up there, and we'll get into the vaccine stuff in a second, but just sticking with the lockdown period, you are interviewing your brother, the lockdown governor, every day, giving him the most softball interviews. I remember at one point when the scandal with
but
your
they weren't
well, hold on,
interviews.
let me, you got a nice big rant, so
All
let
right,
me
you're
get
right.
in the middle of lockdown.
Rant for rant.
Sure. So in the middle of lockdowns, think about, this is more a comment on the network CNN than it is on you, but you said at one point a couple years later.
This isn't the part I saw. When he gets into Joe Rogan, but obviously it's all of these things. You know, the way that you would do this is go back and get Chris Cuomo's all of his comments, right? And he demonized people. He demonized anti-vaxxers. We have that. Him and Don Lemons. I mean, Don Lemon said people should be locked up, and Cuomo's was going along with that, right? That these people should go to jail. I mean, all these things that I've shown you. There's all these clips. And as a group, they were all doing it, right? And he wasn't pushing back against this. But, he can rearrange it. He probably doesn't even fucking remember because he doesn't have a great mind. And so he's just like, this is what I said. And this is what they always do. Because they're so blatantly wrong, they have to look at who they are and how they interpret life, how they interpret the reality around them. And I'm talking about all these people. Like everybody who's wrong about things on this level, they can't admit that they were wrong on this level. So they have to hedge their bets. They come all in and tell you this, and the other thing. And I've been around people like that. I mean, my brother's like this to some extent. He's a truther. Like when people come in hard and strong on something, and then they turn out to be wrong, and then they reverse their position, and they pretend all along that was their position. They pretend all along they were on the right side of things. Because that's how they kind of construct their reality, because they don't want to take a look at what's going on inside of them and how they interpret the world around them, right?
Or over a year later, when your brother had his scandal. By the way, I respect you for always defending your brother. I would always defend my brother. I understand that. But you said on air on CNN, you said, listen, I haven't been allowed to cover this at all because it would be a conflict of interest for me to cover it. Yet during lockdowns, every single night, CNN allowed you to have the interview of your brother without any meaningful pushback at all. Listen, I understand this is your family I'm talking about, and I don't mean to make things personal in that way.
You kind of do, but I'm open to it.
Well, no, I mean, I don't, but I have no other choice.
Like, you could be accurate, which is...
No, I'm being accurate.
You're not, because nobody thought
What did I say that was inaccurate?
Nobody thought the interviews I was doing with Andrew were news interviews.
Well, no one I know thinks anything on CNN is news.
Okay.
But...
Kaboom.
That's fine.
No, when it's on the cable news network, the presumption is that this is news.
Hold on. How many people in this room thought that when I was interviewing my brother, it was going to be a hardball interview, and that's why you were watching? Because this is what Chris Cuomo is known for.
Yeah, but that's the whole point.
Come on.
But that's the point.
But he was other places giving interviews all day long. He was coming on at that time with me because people were enjoying the dynamic of getting some sense of familiarity and comfort in an uncomfortable time. That's what the draw was. He was getting asked questions all over the place.
Okay, so this was a big ratings boost for Cuomo's. And they had their banter. Him and Andrew Cuomo's went back and forth. But, like, what he's leaving out here is that his brother fucking murdered 9,000 people, at least manslaughter, by bringing in people who were sick into nursing homes, the most vulnerable population. And it's so bad that they didn't even fire him for that. But then he hid the data. And so he pretended that New York had 9,000 less deaths. There were deaths that would happen because he brought sick people to be around people who were in a nursing home. They started housing these really sick COVID people with elderly people. Horrible fucking decision, right? I mean, even in terms of the mainstream knowledge, I'm not even talking about truther stuff. I mean, mainstream knowledge, that's a horrible fucking decision, right? And because he did that, remember at the time, they were talking about Andrew Cuomo was doing an amazing job. And so they were talking about him running for president, replacing Joe Biden, or running for president in the future. He was one of the most popular politicians, and he had all this banter. He had his own little private show. You know, I'm part Italian, I'm Sicilian. And Tony Danza said, it's every Italian's dream, or Italian man's dream, to have a tuxedo and a microphone, right? I'm only a quarter Italian, so it's not my dream. But you could see that, like, they were holding court, and they were celebrating. Chris Cuomo's had the biggest show on CNN, right? Big part of that was demonizing Trump, too, on top of it. He had the biggest show, and he was really successful. And his brother was, like, they were talking about him as being a serious presidential candidate. It all fell apart, and New York got rid of the motherfucker. And they did it because they made up some maybe bullshit, or maybe just exaggerated, or maybe things they would have ignored regularly, sexual harassment charges against him. But the reason for that is 9,000 wrongful death suits would bankrupt a state in which Chris Cuomo was already talking about, you guys come back to the city. Because everyone was now living. The one thing that was good about COVID with the Zoom calls, and people found that they could work from home. Now there's all these people who are working from home now, at least partially, because of the way that these technologies were implemented. And so now people weren't having to come back to New York City, which is being abandoned by rich Democrats, and they're moving to moving to red states, right? And so all of those things are truths that Cuomo's not acknowledging. And then when his brother got fired, he was fired for not covering his brother properly. The thing this guy's accusing him of, CNN fired him for. That he didn't, he was pushing his brother's agenda. And then all of a sudden CNN had integrity, right? But they got rid of their highest rated show because this guy and his brother were part of some fucking, infomercial pushing this COVID agenda that was horrific.
What I said I couldn't cover wasn't him and COVID. It was him and anything. It wasn't going to be a serious news interview. And what I was talking about specifically was not Andrew and COVID. It was his allegations.
No, I know.
Who wants to hear me talk about my brother's allegations and think I'm being
No, it's a clear conflict of interest,
That's what
as was you
about.
interviewing him about lockdown.
Well, it's not like that's the only place he was on during
here's
COVID.
one person in cable news who did some real journalism, okay? Tucker Carlson had on...
Okay, so I want to hear about Tucker Carlson. Let me find the part where he talks about ivermectin. Okay, so here's the part that I saw.
Joe Rogan is bigger than every single show at CNN combined and gets paid more than every single person at CNN combined. And he was 100% right about this thing through the entire time.
No, he wasn't.
Yes, he
wasn't.
Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. Let me get this point out
Tell
here.
me what he was right about.
Okay, how about, you know what you just revealed last month on Pat's show about ivermectin?
Yeah.
Joe Rogan was saying that, and you were smearing him for saying that.
Yeah.
You literally said he's taking horse dewormer.
Yes.
He should be ashamed of himself. You pleaded with your audience to not take it.
Yes.
Then you come back around and you go, hey, Pat, you know what I just found out? Turns out this thing isn't for animals. Turns out humans are. But Chris, a 5-minute Google search and you would have known that.
First of all,
how do you not apologize to Joe Rogan?
Listen, do you know who disagrees with you? Do you know who disagrees with you? The people who make ivermectin disagree with you.
Hold on. What do they disagree with me about?
That the drug should not be taken as a standalone for COVID-19.
I never said it should.
That's what Rogan was saying.
No. He did not. Listen. See, this is the thing, Chris.
See, this is the problem. Chris Rogan, see, the thing about all these people, and lots of them who are truthers, but all the people on mainstream media, they never listen to what other people are saying. Like when I started to, cover these things and I had an audience, I felt like I had a responsibility to my audience. And I, wanted to be fair. And so if I was going to mock people or I was going to demonize them, and sometimes it would be, I don't want to say exaggeration, but, it would be over the top where I would, exaggerate the, not their points, but my mocking of them. But I would at least know what their point of view was. And I would state it, in various places. I would say, this is what these people believe. And I thought that was fair. Like that needed to be done. And people weren't doing that on the internet. And CNN and these, they got this from Fox, where they were always misrepresenting people. And often they would do it by taking a small soundbite, which people do on the internet, and not giving it context, right? That's why I play longer clips of people, so you get the full context of what they're saying before I mock it. Like, I'm not going to take things out of context because that's unfair, right? It's just, and it's not truth. It's, you're creating a person's opinion that isn't their opinion so that you can demonize it. It's building a straw man, which is what Cuomo's and these people do. They've turned Donald Trump into something he's not. Donald Trump isn't great and isn't what Trumpers think he is, but the creation that they have over at CNN and MSNBC is disingenuous and dishonest, right? They're trying to say he's more racist than Biden, and that's not the case, right? Whatever racism that Trump has, it's the same old guy racism that Joe Biden had because they grew up in the same, basically, time period. And this is what they were, that was what the people believed then, right? At least the people like them. And so, Chris Cuomo's is being caught right here, and they're going to show a clip of it, of misrepresenting what this guy and Joe Rogan said about ivermectin. I'm not an ivermectin person. I didn't take it. I'm not, close to it. I thought that was, what I did. And, I have a whole thing that I could tell people, but I can't tell people on YouTube, at least not as far as I know, because I would just make a video and show everything that I've learned about healthcare because of COVID. It's substantial. And some of the things might help people. Like it's not, not everything's going to work for every person. We have different physical types, different, we're different, whatever it is, right? We have different energies and vibrations, and all this stuff is vibrational. But I could tell everyone what I did and what I learned. And, YouTube would censor it, and I haven't got the time and energy to put it on some other platform, which eventually I'll do, right? But what the ivermectin debate, CNN and all these people called it horse medicine.
That is a lie. That is a blatant lie. Joe Rogan. So you just pretended that I said it's a standalone for COVID. No. Here's what it always was. Here's what Joe Rogan said. My doctor prescribed it to me, along with several other medications, just like your doctor prescribed it to you. That's what he said. What I'm saying is that it's not horse dewormer, as you and everybody else at CNN mindlessly repeated.
Now,
what he said, no, let me finish. What he said, and what I'm saying is that it is a medicine that's been prescribed to people millions and I think billions of times. And it was totally demonized.
And what this guy doesn't say, at least I don't know, I didn't watch the whole thing, but that CNN is being supported by Pfizer and these other companies. And so that's why, because ivermectin isn't a pharmaceutical drug. And that's why YouTube wouldn't let you talk about it, because YouTube also is being supported by Pfizer. Like, I'm not pushing ivermectin, I don't know. Like, I didn't take it, and I had some questions about it. Not because of the horse dewormer thing, but I ended up, getting better from the things that I did. And so, but the way that ivermectin was being treated, and, I don't trust these guys. I don't trust Tucker Carlson or Joe Rogan, and this guy is using them as legitimate sources, so he is whatever he is. And so, like, this guy's more trustworthy, and his beliefs and my beliefs are more similar than with Chris Cuomo, but I don't necessarily trust any of these guys who have popular podcasts like this, because they're also being supported by the beast, right? They're like they're second level disinformation. And, they're shills in a different way. They're ones that are telling you more truth, like Alex Jones, right?
Why? You already said why. You said it 2 years too late, but you already said why.
No, here's
because
why.
no one owned it.
Here's why. What Pat has on his desk right now, you do not want to take, okay? It is the veterinary grade ivermectin. People were so desperate to get it because they were told it was a panacea. It was a cure-all.
Okay, so what is the difference between animal grade and human grade? Because oftentimes there is no difference. And my wife was saying she knows more about this, that there isn't. And so, because I showed her this clip. And so, what's the difference? Well, you're making it sound like it's two different things, right? My little knowledge of ivermectin, it's ivermectin. There's no animal ivermectin or people ivermectin, right? There's no standards that are different. I mean, there's certainly different standards for animals because, there's different standards for animal food, pet food, and things like this. You can put more toxic shit in them. But already people food is already being poisoned, and human medicines are poisons, in various ways, right? Toxic to the human system. And so there's lots of carcinogens out there in the supermarket and things that cause heart disease, McDonald's and the supermarket, these other places, right? And so, his argument is silly because, let's just let them finish here.
By who? Who told them that?
It was online.
Well,
they
you
were
just
flooding
claimed
it.
Joe Rogan said it. You claimed I said it. Neither of us have said that.
But
so
hold on. So why was there a rush on ivermectin all of a sudden?
Can I tell you my honest opinion about that? Okay, it's that the medical establishment and the corporate media so humiliated themselves that they lost trust with the entire American people. And then, there were some charlatans online who were saying, "Oh, go take this," and they trusted them.
Please, here's what happened. Okay?
If you think,
Dave, please.
If you think Joe Rogan said, "Take any form of ivermectin you can get, and you'll never get COVID,"
I'm not blaming Rogan. Here's what happened. And
you should be apologizing to him.
And again, listen. Listen. Here's what happened. Here's what happened. Also, let me tell you why I think apologies in this context are a stunt, okay? We don't accept apologies. Nobody accepts apologies except as an admission that you weaponize. That's why Trump never apologizes. He's right. Because if you apologize, everybody just beats you over the head with.
Trump's got a lot to apologize for, and so do you.
I'm just saying, as a concept, and you should too on this, and I'll tell you why.
What should I apologize for?
Here's what happened. Ivermectin, it wasn't because...
You should too. Again, look at the expressions.
Because the media said don't take it, so everyone took it. The media would have never been talking about it unless people were taking it. Use your head. So here...
No, you should use your head, Chris. So what he just said, what Chris Cuomo just said was that the media was talking about it because everyone was trying to take it, and the media was trying to protect them. There's poisons in everything. Like if Fauci wanted to protect you, he would stand at Walmart and tell you or just go out and do it, do a video and tell you all the shit that you're eating that's poisonous. Tell you all the ingredients that are in, these various foods that are horrible for you. Starting with polyunsaturated fats and seed oils and this stuff, canola oil and all the rest of it. They would tell you what it does to your system and what's going to happen to you if you consistently eat this food. And then they would say everything about the medicines as well. And then they would tell you how to boost your immune system in a more subtle, natural way. There's no immune system boosting pharmaceutical drugs out there that naturally boost your immune system, support your immune system, not trigger your immune system like the vax does, but boost it, right? There's none of that out there. And so this idea that there was a run on ivermectin and that the media was trying to protect people from it because it was horse dewormer is bullshit, and that people were misusing it. And so that was a bigger threat. It's just like when they say that when there's disinformation on the internet, we need to stop that because it's a threat to people. And yet they're poisoning people and they're droning kids and they're killing fucking kids. And Joe Biden droned 7 kids. That's real shit, right? That's real consequences that lies and wrong thinking, wrong behavior does to people, right? And so, it's this idea that somehow they're protecting us and trying to keep us safe, which I always say, oh, I'm just trying to keep you safe. That's what they say when you're locked in a mental institution. They're drugging you and they're physically manhandling you. and they're telling you it's for your own good and your own protection because you've been put in there by some psychiatric hold by some quack doctor because the establishment is doing it. It's like this was in the movie The Penguin, and this gang leader put his daughter in a psych ward because she realized he had killed her mom, his wife, and was murdering these other women, and he blamed her for it and gaslighted her, his own daughter, right? That was a part of the Penguin series. Spoiler alert. But anyways, this idea that he's saying is false. The other thing that he would say, he just said, you use your head. Another reason is all these corporate media centers were pushing the pharmaceutical companies' bullshit. And if you started using ivermectin and it worked, then you wouldn't do the pharmaceutical bullshit, and they wouldn't make the kind of profits they were paying you to advertise on your shitty shows for. And so that's why, they do the bidding of the people that pay them money, which is Big Pharma. And so Big Pharma was against ivermectin. That's the fucking bottom line, right? Again, I don't even know if ivermectin works. I don't even know any of it because I didn't try it. I didn't really research it. It is whatever it is. But the reason it was pushed back was because of Big Pharma.
Here's what happens. They're prescribing it like crazy. They actually stop physicians from being able to prescribe it, which I think was a mistake. They then start giving out veterinary grade ivermectin, which, as the word would suggest, you shouldn't take, right?
Doctors were prescribing veterinary?
No, people were desperately trying to get it online. They couldn't find it. Okay.
Yeah, because you guys, the pharmaceutical companies, made it impossible for people to buy it, and states were banning it. That's why. Like something that doctors were prescribing and was working for people, they banned it. So say why? Because it's Big Pharma. Because you had Big Pharma's dick in your mouth, Chris.
Ivermectin is the most studied potential treatment for COVID of all of them, which was a complete waste of money. And it was all done just to play on the politics of this. Merck, that made ivermectin, put out a statement during this saying, we do not advise it to be used for COVID-19.
Yeah, because Merck is trustworthy. Because Merck had their own vaccine. Which do you think Merck wanted to sell? Cheap ivermectin or expensive vaccines? Like, just fucking make the logical jump here, you fucking moron.
You can't find research that is seen as impressive by the research community that proves that ivermectin is effective in treating COVID-19. Rob can find you 100 studies, right? Listen, you're wrong on this.
No, I'm not.
And I'll tell you why. Because they're mad at me too, by the way. You think you guys are alone?
So,
no.
But why are you taking it
Here's
then?
why. My doctor, I didn't take it during COVID-19. And I didn't take hydroxychloroquine when I was sick with COVID-19, even though a lot of people thought they were being nice by sending it to me. Why? Because the research isn't there. That's why.
You mean the pharmaceuticals paid scientists that are there to tell you to take their shit because they make money off of you being sick? You mean that's what you mean, right?
COVID, with long COVID, okay? Not long vax, that's a different thing. If it's going to get recognized as such. I don't know. They won't say that yet. Long COVID, they're now saying exists. There is research. Is it dispositive? No. Do the people on the government levels and the research communities like that I said that I'm taking it? No. Do they think I'm setting myself up for lawsuits? Yes. But my doctor, I believe, is in the vanguard of people who are figuring out long COVID. Okay. And she has a lot of the same problems, by the way, with me and with the pandemic that you do. And she has found research, and she has had her own experience in using it in a combination with.
So you're not listening to her about that, but you're willing to put it in your body what she recommends, something that you've told people not to take. Okay, so I have to recreate a clip because I forgot to turn on the record button. Me and my dogs went for a walk, and I ate lunch, and I had some thoughts during the walk, and I was watching different things during eating lunch. And one of the things was a Dana Bash clip, which I'm going to show you, where she says something incredibly stupid and just weird about, she has some cast member from Dirty Dancing on her show, the movie Dirty Dancing, weird thing. And then I was watching First Take, which they were talking about the Green Bay Packers versus the Detroit Lions game. And there was a question posed, do you trust Jordan Love, the quarterback for the Green Bay Packers, to win big games like the Super Bowl? And who gives a shit whether you trust him or not? It's a silly question. most of the stuff that they do there in terms of these talk shows is nonsensical, just bullshit that has zero value. Opinions just don't matter. Most opinions are just, they have no value because there are things that are already scripted. There's a divine script. There's the beings that control the universe. Of course, there's the people I call the controllers. And then there's things, most of the things are already predetermined. Most of your choices are already predetermined by your past life mistakes, samskaras, addictions, proclivities, things, tendencies. I mean, people think they're making choices, but for the most part, it's already, there are things that are going to happen no matter what. And so there's very little change. I mean, people can change internally. The way that you interpret your experience is the biggest chance for advancement or change. Accepting your experience and rising to the highest level and understanding it on a higher level and being grateful for it and a spiritual level, that's the best you can do. But most of this stuff that people talk about things they have no control over, they're not a part of, and they just want to verbalize their opinion. They're just talking shit, right? And Chris Cuomo, why are you trying to save Chris Cuomo? Why are you trying to get his apology? What is his apology worth, right? I wouldn't do any of this stuff. And I wouldn't, these things they're just a waste of time. I mean, if you're going to promote your stuff, all right, I can understand that. You want more viewers, you want to expand your audience. Yeah, there's, reasons for you to do this. But this interaction, this debate, debates are worthless. I'm glad they did it. It's, there's information I'm able to present here, but I have no idea whether this guy's going to copyright me, the PDD podcast, right? I'm using a lot of the content, so I might be doing this for free, which is kind of undesirable. I should get paid for, having to sit through and listen to Chris Cuomo for free is not what I would do. And, all these people at CNN and the rest of them, they're not, there's nothing that they have that's valuable unless they're presenting some kind of, they're covering an earthquake or they're showing you real footage or something. Everything else, everything that they say, all their opinions, all their experts, they're based in the fact that they have sponsors and they have handlers and they themselves have been compromised and they have an agenda. And there's no truth here. There's no truth because they're not looking for truth. They're not wanting to tell you the truth. They're not seeking the truth, right? You got to be able to find the truth before you can tell the truth.
But listen, you told me I should apologize.
You got to be able to know the truth.
Think I should?
You got to be able to know the truth before you tell the truth, right? And this guy is saying this is about his apology.
Apologize for, and then I'll tell you what I think you should apologize for.
I know what you think I should apologize for. Obviously, there was so much talk that they don't want you to take ivermectin. Ivermectin is the way to go. Take it. Joe Rogan got better from ivermectin. And by the way, I don't like what people did to Joe Rogan about ivermectin. I don't like it.
You did it.
No.
Okay, yes, you did.
This is the big moment here.
Clips. Dude, find the clips. You shamed Joe Rogan.
Find the
clips. You said
clips.
he's taking horse dewormer. You and Don Lemon were chuckling at each other about it.
No,
I'll go find
first
the
of all,
clip.
you just saw the clips.
I watched it.
I'm not chuckling. I'm listening to Don. But
No. The
here's
clip
point.
I'm talking about wasn't on there, and it's absolutely there. Here, do we have it? Hold on. Let's play the clip.
Injecting drugs for animals and horse.
And people telling them to. Oh, my God. What person? You talk about cancel culture and who to shame. Ivermectin, a dewormer, really?
They are shaming themselves.
That's what it is.
They're shaming.
Okay, so whenever I screw up and I don't hit the on button, I don't record something or the mic isn't working or there's some kind of problem that I have. And I've said things and I can't remember what I've said before, what I just covered. I run the risk of saying something again or not saying something that I wanted to say, right? So it's a whole thing. But they were talking about, and I didn't know how far to go back, but they were debating about ivermectin versus ivermectin for horses. Both this guy, the guy, John Smith or whatever his name is, and Cuomo's. There's no difference between ivermectin, whatever it is, and I kind of only barely kind of know what it is. But for example, there's no difference between the vitamin D you give to horses and the vitamin D that you give to people. Now, again, I'm not suggesting you take, this is not recommending anything. What I'm saying is vitamin D is vitamin D. Now, there might be some restrictions and more oversight in the stuff that you give to people. But, vitamin B is vitamin B, vitamin D is vitamin D, ivermectin is ivermectin. It isn't like they have ivermectin for horses and ivermectin for people. It's just that the ivermectin for horses maybe is a little bit looser in terms of their restrictions and the way that they, whatever it is, right? But there might not be any difference at all, like my wife was saying earlier. And so the whole thing is just like silly. Like they would react because what they're not saying, which the truth is here, is they didn't want you to take ivermectin because Big Pharma, their Big Pharma handlers, don't own it. And so they were demonizing ivermectin, which we see over and over again. Again, I hope I'm not repeating myself, but it is, I don't want to run the risk of not saying this. But Big Pharma their handlers were saying, Merck or whatever it was. I think I said this already. And so, Big Pharma wasn't going to profit from ivermectin, and they were going to profit from their other bullshit. And these guys are told what to say by their handlers, and Big Pharma is one of those handlers and one of those, people that sponsored them. And so that's all you need to know, right? And so, there's no reason to take this guy seriously.
So you're taking a dewormer right now, Chris. Chris, you can't apologize for that. You weren't being clear that it was this, and you know that, dude. You're being so dishonest right now, man.
I'm not being
You were
dishonest.
talking about ivermectin, the drug. You were not talking about this version of ivermectin. Come on,
I
man.
was responding to a situation where...
Okay, so just enough, right? But there's just no reason. Chris Cuomo's is somebody to mock. He's never going to be somebody... if you're going to him for information, well, you're already fucked. I mean, this isn't the only bad decision you're making. If listening to Chris Cuomo's is where you get your news, then you've already made a lot of other bad decisions, and you're going to make them anyway. Whether you listen to Chris Cuomo's or you listen to Fox or you listen to Alex Jones or any of these people. When you can't differentiate between who's telling you the truth and who's not and who's worth listening to, and you're this far... you're this far up the butt of the mainstream narrative, right? You're already fucked no matter what. There's no, you got to owe an apology to these people. If they didn't hear it from Cuomo's, they would have heard it from somebody else, and they would have done the same thing that they did. There's no apologies necessary because everybody finds the level of their ability to understand, in terms of the levels of the truth that's being put out there. Everybody finds their level, and then they make their decisions. They're preset decisions based on the stuff they want to hear, right? If you really want to place a bet on the Green Bay Packers or the Detroit Lions, and you really want to bet them, and you really want to bet this game, you're going to find somebody who's going to tell you why to make that bet. And you're going to hear people who tell you why not to make that bet, and you're going to dismiss them. You're going to say that guy's full of shit. So you've already made your decision. So why are you listening to people? Just go do what you're going to do because you're going to do it anyway, right? It's just silly. All right, let me show you the CNN thing and the other thing here.
If that is on TV, I do not turn it off. I stop whatever I'm doing. I'm late for wherever I'm going. You played Baby, Francis's mother.
So I'm flipping through the channels, right? And I come across Dana Bash talking to this woman who's a dancer and somebody in a lot of those Broadway shows and played the mom on Dirty Dancing. And Dana Bash says this incredibly fucked up thing where she says, when I come across Dirty Dancing, I don't turn it off. I watch the whole thing. I'm late for whatever I am and all these things. There's technology out there where she could own the DVD or own the, this on a video format or just rent it. She has the money to rent it whenever she wants. Or I'm sure it's free on some different streaming service like Netflix or whatever it is. And she can watch it at her convenience. But she's going to be late to shit because she just happened to turn the TV on and miraculously Dirty Dancing happens to be on. And she's just got to sit down and watch it because it's that powerful a fucking movie. The other piece of this is Dirty Dancing sucks, right? Patrick Swayze was probably gay, right? He played a transvestite in a movie, Tu Wong Fu. But his gayest movie was Roadhouse. If you watch Roadhouse, you're like, oh my God, this is really gay. And Patrick Swayze, the way he's trying to fight, and he's a big-time dancer. I think he probably died of AIDS and not of cancer. I think he had a bad marriage or whatever it is. And so he's the sort of the part of the movie that isn't obnoxious people from New York City who are vacationing from New York City up in the Catskills, who are mostly Jewish people, which I think is Dana Bash's connection to the movie. And it's just a really bad movie. I mean, it was very popular when it was released, but there's lots of things that suck about it that are very mockable. And she doesn't have, she has this person on, this woman, because of whatever her admiration is for this woman who most of us don't even know and barely would remember or recognize from the movie. I'll show you the clip. But this is a person whose decision making, like she doesn't know how to watch Dirty Dancing without being late to things, right? She doesn't know how to tape it, or, she could have it. I mean, if she has DirecTV, she could tape it and just leave it in her, her folder or whatever, your area where these files are put. I mean, there's all kinds of different ways she could watch Dirty Dancing in her leisure hours instead of being late to things. And again, the fact that it's such a bad movie, and this is a person who's telling Americans what to think, right?
And I can't believe I get to ask you this. There's one line in there that I want to play for our viewers and ask you about it on the other side. I think she gets this from me. I think she gets that from me. That was after you've done a chorus line. You are a...
Okay, so she goes on and asks her, the question that she's burning to ask her, is that spontaneous or did you ad-lib it? And clearly she didn't ad-lib it because it's a scene in the movie. There's not... I mean, she's sitting there with her husband and they cut away to her and she clearly didn't ad-lib it. But she's dying to ask her that fucking question? Who gives a shit, right? And, of course, it was scripted. Like, it was obviously something that you could tell from the scene that she's saying, that this is a part of the script. And the woman says, oh, yeah, people ask me that all the time, but it's scripted. Of course it's scripted, right? Like, this is so sad. Like, what sad little lives they have. This is a person who's supposed to know about world events and politics and, be a pundit and an expert in the political field. Of course, she's not. She's just some shill at CNN. And this is the kind of stuff she's into. Like, why is this woman even on her show? Like, she has a news show. Shit's going on, like World War III, Trump stuff, all this stuff is going on. She's got this woman from Dirty Dancing on, and she's like in heaven. It's just so effed up. All right, so the next piece is a movie I just saw. I'll have to go look up the title of the movie. But this scene, the context for this scene is, spoiler alert, it's kind of a good movie. I enjoyed it. But there's a guy who's a fixer and he's ripped off these people. Let me say the title of the movie here first. The thing's called Cop Shop. And so there's a guy who was brought in who punched a cop because someone's trying to assassinate him. He's got a bullet hole, he's shot, and he's in jail. And another guy comes in who slammed into two state troopers without any identification and is so drunk, or at least apparently drunk. But he ends up assaulting his cellmate, calling for help, and then he knocks out the guy in charge of the precinct, the sergeant or whatever it is, takes his gun and tries to kill the other guy. So he's trying to assassinate the other guy. So they're digging up information on this guy. They figure out who he is. He's an assassin. And this guy has all of his associates, people he's associated with, up. This cop, right? And then this guy walks in with a bunch of balloons.
You look just like this fucking ass bag down there.
Oh, come on now. You're kidding.
No, you gotta check this out. Look at this. You look just like him. The resemblance is fucking uncanny.
So it's funny, this guy's name, the hitman here is named Anthony Lamb, right? But he's coming into this precinct. And of course, the guy behind the thing, he's an actor, but doesn't have the benefit of the music and things. But everyone else knows this guy's, hitman. Now, his sergeant is laying up, with a concussion, and he had his ass kicked. And this guy's cellmate has his trachea broken, and he's choking to death, and they had to do a tracheotomy or whatever it's called. Whatever. I'm not even going to try it. The video's wrapping up here. But they had to do that operation, just a makeshift operation to keep the guy alive. And so the place should be on lockdown. There's a crisis mode. And a guy walks in who looks just like one of his hitman associates. And this guy, it doesn't ring a bell. This is like in classic sheeple. I mean, just a great example. Obviously, it's a movie of the sheeple mentality. The evidence is right there in front of you. You have every reason to be alarmed. You have every reason to doubt anybody coming in. There's assassination attempt going on inside the precinct, which is a fucked up thing because, there's cops all around. And yet he tells this guy, he's talking to this guy who's about to kill him, about the coinkydink that he looks like somebody that would, probably kill him if he was that guy.
Now, what are the odds? Oh, hold on there, buddy. Oh, steady now. Ooh, the boats are rocking. Oh, I'd love to know what's going through your mind.
Okay, so let's get back to the title of this video. There are a few other things I was going to cover, but the Joe Rogan, the Chris Cuomo thing went longer than I anticipated. But let's go back to the title of this video. You can't tell the truth if you don't know the truth, right? And so people are telling their truth. I mean, that's what all the internet is. That's what everybody's doing, including me, all of us. It's our truth. It's where we are, what level of comprehension we are, what level we are in terms of penetrating to deeper levels of consciousness, deeper levels. I mean, there's so many layers to understanding. First, the illusion, and then the ways of the divine, the ways of divinity and the ways of God and the spiritual principles. And there's just layers and levels of it, right? But the majority of people are just, they're broken and they're deprived and depleted of any life's energy and vital energy and all these things, right? They just don't have it in them. And it's sad, but it's just the way it is. Like, it just has to be accepted because it is that way, right? It isn't something that they can even change. Most people just don't have the ability to rise up to some higher level. This was just a great scene, a great example of it. But the Dana Bash things, it shows you where they're at. Like, she thinks Dirty Dancing's a good movie and that this interview is worth doing and that, people would watch this interview. Yeah, of course, maybe people who watch her already because they're the same demographic, same age group, same, whatever it is, right? But in reality, it has it's dead content, right? It's a movie that sucked years ago and sucks even more. There's lots of movies that the longer they, most movies and most content sucks over time. Like, it gets worse over time. Like, things that are classic and avoid they're timeless. Like, they fit into any time period. They're very rare. Books and TV shows, movies, things that are just, they're not contemporary. They're not, even this video will suck to whatever extent because a lot of the stuff that we're talking about here, no one's going to care about. And some of the stuff people don't even care about now, right? And so that's, so it's just, even videos like this that might have some truth or some higher level energy or consciousness in them. It's about things that are time sensitive. And again, there's always value that could be derived from something of a higher nature, but there's very few things that are timeless. And, these things that are outdated and CNN is still pushing them is because people who are watching Dana Bash probably like the movie Dirty Dancing, right? And so, there's no way of them being able to see the truth because that's where they're at. They're stuck in the past. And the future isn't better. Like, the past that they're stuck in is better than where we are now because, there's great things about where we are now. They're starting, the truth is leaking through, and there are people gravitating to it, but the majority of people are still got their heads in the sand. And those people can't be saved and shouldn't be saved because those people don't deserve to move forward. Like, if there is going to be an evolutionary movement, people are going to rise to a higher level of consciousness, those people haven't earned their spot on the ship, right? If this is a Noah's Ark situation, then you have to earn your spot on the ship, right? To be part of the future, right? Pockets of the future. That's what this is about. You have to change and evolve in some ways and adapt and accept and prepare yourself and adjust yourself to the way things are going to be in the future. And so that you can be a part of the solution. Everyone else is just a part of the problem and needs to go down with the fucking ship because the ship be sinking. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely point for the apocalypse, laughs, and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.